Chapter 1179. Master Ling Xiao, do you really want to compete with me in terms of physical strength? Wang Yan looked at Ling Xiao in surprise as a trace of doubt appeared between his brows. He could not figure out what was going on. Was this Ling people's young master really arrogant, or was he endlessly talented? Everyone knew that on the path of immortal Tao, one would not be able to reach the peak if there were too many different types of talent. Therefore, some people cultivated the sword, some cultivated the body, and some cultivated the soul. Since the ancient times until now, those that truly stood towering in the heavens had all cultivated one path of the Tao to the peak, and they were called emperors and ascended immortals, moving unhindered through the 8 barriers. You might have heard of the sword immortal, the lightning emperor, the Guqin demon, and the fire god, but have you heard of the Qin, Go, calligraphy, painting, and saber immortal? Ling Xiao's reputation was due to his righteousness and righteousness. As for his physical strength, it was not that Wang Yan was arrogant, but there was no one in the entire Azure continent who could compare to him. Are you scared? Ling Xiao smiled. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and he looked extremely handsome. He stood there like the sun in the sky and the moon in the stars, dazzling everyone. In fact, even the playful smile at the corner of her mouth was filled with a kind of clean, gentle, and also a trace of evil. No, no, no. How could he be called evilness? He just felt naughty. Love. Scared. Wang Yan shook his head and smiled. His face flashed with a strong desire to battle. I'm just afraid that I'll hurt young master and bring disaster upon myself. I've said that I, Ling Xiao, will never bully others. It's a fair fight and life and death is up to fate. Ling Xiao said indifferently. His eyes were filled with coldness. If Wang Yan did not give it his all, how would he be able to defeat him? Although Li Ju did not have much luck, the Berserk Tao Law was still pretty good. With the immortal demon Ancient Bell restraining him, Ling Xiao could not use the power of the Sky Demon as he wished. However, whether it was the World Destroyer Tao Law or the 9 stances of the immemorial Heaven Destroyer, they were all things he could rely on to defeat immortals in the future. No matter how small the leak was, it was still an opportunity for a breakthrough. Life and death is up to fate. Everyone has heard it. Today, young master and I will have a fair fight. I hope everyone can bear witness to it. Wang Yan stepped forward and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Young lord, my apologies. After saying this, Wang Yan no longer hesitated as he took a step forward, and a tyrannical aura descended from his body. Layers of ripples appeared in the void. Unmatched great power descended like a divine mountain from the heavens, a falling star falling from the west, imprisoning heaven and earth, obliterating the immortal Tao. The entire hall was shattered with a loud bang. A powerful gust of wind that could be seen with the naked eye tore through the space and descended upon Ling Xiao. It was obvious that Wang Yan had used his full strength in this punch. Furthermore, there was no flaw in this pure physical strength. If he could block it, he would be the victor. Otherwise, he would be defeated. However, facing Wang Yan's descending figure and the fist that was the size of a human head, Ling Xiao's face did not have a trace of panic. Then, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, he calmly extended his palm and clenched it into a fist, ready to clash with Wang Yan. Young master Hua Mingxi Yaoguang and the other girls' faces froze as a trace of worry flashed in their eyes. Although Qing Tsang knew of Ling Xiao's strength, in terms of physical strength, even those in the echelon would not be able to match up to Li Ju. Boom! Just as everyone's faces were filled with worry, Wang Yan's fist finally collided with Ling Xiao. Crack! In fact, before the crowd could react, they saw young master's black robe and 3,000 strands of hair flutter in the wind. However, his figure did not even take half a step back. An ear-piercing shattering sound rang clearly in everyone's ears. Some of the more timid girls had already unconsciously closed their eyes, afraid to see the scene of young master being shattered by a single punch. Smoke and dust rose, mesmerizing everyone's eyes. The entire hall fell into an eerie silence. It's shattered, it's shattered! After a long while, the layers of smoke dissipated, and a cry of surprise suddenly came from the crowd. Then, everyone was dumbfounded as they saw that the two figures still maintained their previous posture. However, Wang Yan, who was standing in midair, suddenly began to shatter inch by inch from his arm. In just a breath's time, this monstrous talent of the heavenly imperial palace, whose name resounded throughout Qingtsang, was shattered into a pile of flesh and blood. A bloody mist rose, and a thick smell of blood assaulted everyone's faces. Everyone's eyes widened as they fell into a long period of shock. In that instant, no one sensed a trace of spiritual aura fluctuation. In other words, the collision between the two was purely a collision of physical strength. However, even so, Lord Ling Xiao still won. Without any surprise, it was a light breeze. With one punch, he shattered Wang Yan, who was known for his physical strength. Gulp. A moment later, the sound of saliva being swallowed could be heard in the hall. Ling Xiao walked in front of Hua Mingxi and held the 3,000 fleeting moments in his hand as he said coldly, "I'll take care of this sword for now. Wait a minute." However, just as everyone thought that the banquet had come to an end, a light shout could be heard from the crowd. The successor of the literary sage Immortal Palace, Zhao Bado, suddenly stood up and looked at Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, but there was a smile on his face. "Master, Bado admires you for your righteousness. However, Bado believes that the sword is a gentleman among weapons and the 3,000 fleeting moments is a peerless sword. If you want to wield this sword, I'm afraid that martial strength alone is not enough to convince everyone." "Oh? Brother Zhao, you mean?" Ling Xiao smiled, but he already knew what Zhao Bado wanted to do. With the combat strength that he had just displayed, these so-called monstrous talents did not dare to compete with him. However, the literary sage Immortal Palace entered the Tao through literature, and Zhao Bado was known as the reincarnation of the literary sage. Today, Ling Xiao was in the limelight and had suppressed everyone. It was inevitable that there would be people who wanted to step on him and become a saint. On top of that, scholars cared more about talents that could be passed down through the ages. The power that people admired was also known as the power of will. It could lead to the path of immortality. Legend has it that back in the day, the human emperor Xianyuan sealed the sky with his holy blood. He fought against immortals and built the foundation for the humankind. However, other than his righteousness and heaven-defying fighting ability, the human emperor's talents were unparalleled. Since you have the title of the human emperor, you must be talented as well. Zhao Bado's expression was emotionless. "Why don't you compose a poem to fulfill my wish?" "Compose a poem?" Hua Mingxi frowned. She was about to speak up for Ling Xiao when the latter shook his head and laughed at himself. "How could I be qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with the human emperor? It's just that the fellow Taoists in Qingtsang have shown me too much respect." Hearing this, Zhao Bado frowned and his eyes were filled with surprise. He didn't really care about the heavenly sword. However, as the successor of the literature Saint Palace, he had been influenced by the deeds of the human ancestors since he was young. The title of the human emperor was too absurd. He wouldn't allow the world to belittle the human emperor Xianyuan like that. Even if Ling Xiao had an unparalleled background and an extraordinary appearance, he didn't care. He wouldn't regret it even if he had to die. This was the character of a scholar. It was also called pettiness. Shut up. How could a scholar's matter be called provocation? This was called making friends through literature. Damn. Fine. Although I am not talented, this sword is very important. I can only embarrass myself. Just when everyone thought that Ling Xiao was going to compromise, they saw a touch of tenderness on his face. There is a beauty in the immortal phoenix. She is independent from the world. When she looks at me, she can overturn a city. When she looks at me again, she can overturn a country. I would rather not overturn a city or a country. Boom! Endless heavenly charm quietly rose and fell. At this time, everyone's face was shocked and stunned again. Especially the young man in black with melancholy eyes. He was like a strand of stubbornness that pierced deeply into the hearts of the people. Immortal phoenix? Goo? Beauty? Overturning a city? Suddenly, a woman's eyes turned black and she fainted on the spot. A man's body trembled and his Taoist heart trembled. What kind of love did he have to open his mouth and recite such a famous saying? Lord Ling Xiao, you are unparalleled in the world. Chapter 1180. Pft. Looking at the black-robed figure, Zhao Badu's face turned pale. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. One glance could topple a city. Another glance could topple a country. How stunning! Even though Zhao Badu was talented and had the heart of a literary sage, he was still shaken to the core in front of such a peerless sentence. His Tao heart was almost shattered. Furthermore, just now, Ling Xiao did not seem to hesitate at all. He opened his mouth and said such words that would be passed down for generations. Beep, Destiny person's Tao heart is trembling. Congratulations to host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. How is this possible? Zhao Badu staggered. The light in his eyes had dimmed. Hearing the system notification, Ling Xiao's eyes became even more sinister. Sigh, I feel something in my heart. I have to say it out loud. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked to the table and picked up a cup of celestial wine. He seemed to be muttering to himself. Again? Countless proud sons and daughters unconsciously clenched their fists with anticipation in their eyes. Invincible celestial beauty, incomparably handsome, and eternally talented. They couldn't find a single flaw in Ling Xiao. He was like a piece of jade. No matter from which angle, he was perfect. Oh, the only imperfection was that he had Gu Chao Ci in his heart. In other words, the young master had given all the good things to the Empress alone. When will the moon be bright? I ask the sky with a cup of wine. I don't know what year it is in the heavens. I want to ride the wind and return, but I'm afraid of the Jade Palace. Ling Xiao raised his head, his eyes filled with the vicissitudes of life. He finished the celestial brew in one gulp, shook his head, and sighed softly. Suddenly, a cry of blood came from the hall. Zhao Badu trembled and took a few steps back. He only managed to stabilize himself by holding onto the wall. His face was as pale as a sheet. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. Even his forehead was covered in cold sweat. His eyes were no longer filled with shock. Instead, they were filled with despair and fear. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. A maniacal laughter rang out as Zhao Badu staggered out of the hall. The reincarnation of the sage of literature? Ha 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 ha, I'm not worthy. It's too cold at the top, too cold at the top. What a good saying, it's lonely at the top. Plop. In the end, Zhao Badu's figure didn't manage to walk out of the hall before he fell to the ground. Another system notification sounded in Ling Xiao's ears. The chosen one's Tao heart has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 5,000 luck points and 50,000 villain points. At this moment, the faces of the geniuses in the hall were still filled with shock. Although they did not enter the Tao through literature, they were not like Zhao Badu, who had a deep understanding of the two ancient poems, which caused his Tao heart to crumble and his immortal path to be severed. However, even ordinary sect disciples could vaguely sense the Taoist rhyme contained in the words. Lord Ling Xiao, as expected of you. In terms of martial arts, you killed Lord Xiaoyang with one palm strike and destroyed King Yan with one punch. In terms of the thesis, you destroyed the Tao heart of Zhao Badu, who was known as the Sage of Literature in the Sage of Literature Immortal Palace. He couldn't even walk out of the hall of the Merchant Union. In terms of character, when the evil demon appeared, all the geniuses were afraid. Only young master took the lead and carried the backbone of the human race. What else is there to say? Young master, you're the only one in the 9 heavens. It's too cold at the top in the hall. Hua Mingxi and the other girls hadn't woken up from the envy of the city when they completely fell into the profound vicissitudes of life of the phrase, "It's too cold at the top." Young Master Hua, young Master Hua? Ling Xiao shook his head slightly. He put the 3,000 fleeting moments into his universe ring and was about to walk out of the hall. Young master, wait. Hua Mingxi was startled. She quickly caught up with him and finally, a trace of uneasiness appeared in her eyes. Can I borrow some of your time, young master? I'm tired. Let's do it later. Ling Xiao said indifferently. He then saw Xianyuan Weiyang Yaoguang and Jin Han coming from afar. He then said in a low voice, since there's a demon in this heavenly Tao city, the 3 of you should stay here at ease. Don't move around casually. Yes, young master. Jin Han bowed slightly. However, Yaoguang's face had a rare trace of sadness. Golden light shone in her eyes and Buddha nature flowed. However, the blood lotus in between her eyebrows was strange and enchanting. It seemed to be overflowing with demonic intent. He really wasn't the evil demon who broke her Bodhi heart, right? There were a total of 6 sentences, but each sentence was deeply affectionate and engraved in her heart. Even if Yaoguang was born with a Buddha-like heart and wasn't sad or depressed, she still couldn't extricate herself from it. A heartless and emotionless demon wouldn't be able to create such deep love. Suddenly, the sadness on Yaoguang's face disappeared. She lowered her head and chanted the name of Buddha. A red lotus bloomed in between her eyebrows. It was unprecedentedly bright. How can it be? How can Brother Ji Jiu be a demon? When the crowd in the hall dispersed, Zhao Badu of the literary sage Immortal Palace was carried back to his residence. On the square, Yang Yuan suddenly punched the stone wall in front of him. At this moment, there was an obvious trace of resentment and unwillingness on his face. Although the demonic intent on Zhang Juji's body was extremely sinister and evil, Yang Yuan still didn't believe that the simple smiling young man was a demon. There must be something hidden in this matter. Junior sister, you go back to your residence first. I'm going out of the city. Xia Zhiming didn't even look at Yang Yuan. She turned around and walked away. A glance could topple a city. A second glance could topple a country. Sigh. Soon, the news that there was a demon in heavenly Tao City spread through the streets and alleys. Of course, the 2 ancient poems written by Lord Ling Xiao also spread along with the news. Instantly, Ling Xiao's fame became unparalleled. Whether it was his ability to crush the outstanding talents of the current generation or his talent and righteousness, countless prides of the ancient sects and saintesses of the large clans fell in love with him. They couldn't help but want him, at the same time, outside heavenly Tao City. A silhouette descended from the sky and disappeared into the ancient forest. Jiuji, what's going on? Yinyu's voice was clearly angry. Although she escaped in time and there were no Supreme Being experts around, her aura was still exposed. She was afraid that if Zhang Jiuji showed himself, he would be hunted down endlessly. If that was the case, he wouldn't be able to cultivate as an immortal. I don't know either. It's like I've fallen into some kind of domain. I can't break free at all. Zhang Jiuji shook his head blankly. For a moment, he wondered if the female immortal who was chasing after him had sensed his aura. However, after thinking about it for a while, he dismissed the idea. If that female immortal had really come to heavenly Tao City and discovered his whereabouts, she could have used the excuse of fighting for the treasure to attack him. There was no need for her to go through so much trouble. Who could it be? Can't break free? With your divine body, even in the Buddha domain, you weren't completely restrained. Could it be that the one who attacked you was a Supreme Being expert? Yinyu frowned. If it was a Supreme Being expert, Zhang Juji wouldn't have any chance of escaping. What's going on? No. Senior, I have to go back. Otherwise, second senior sister will be cursed. Chapter 1181. Go back? You're crazy. Inu's pretty face was stunned. She appeared out of thin air, and her delicate little face was filled with shock and anger. Senior, it's fine if I leave, but someone will definitely make things difficult for second senior sister. Once someone knows about our relationship, I'm afraid. For some reason, Zhang Juji suddenly had a very bad premonition. No matter if it was him and Lei Yun being killed inexplicably or him being forced to reveal the demonic will today, it all seemed like someone had deliberately arranged it. With the divine power of his divine body, he should be able to turn misfortune into blessings, drive away evil and expel evil, and have a smooth journey to the top of the world. Why would he encounter setbacks wherever he went? Something was not right. It was the aura of a conspiracy. Could it be that someone was deliberately targeting senior sister and junior sister? I advise you not to act rashly. The enemy is in the dark now. If you go back rashly, how is it different from courting death? Inu snorted coldly. The demonic will around her circulated and confined Zhang Juji's body. But, Senior, wait. Now that you've been exposed, the Dao Sky City is like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. If your senior sister trusts you, I'm sure she will find a way to find you alone. However, if you take the initiative to find her, won't you accuse her of colluding with the demonic will? Hearing this, Zhang Juji immediately fell silent. That's right. He had no idea who his opponent was. Moreover, to be able to imprison him silently, that person's strength was at least at the saint realm. Zhang Juji did not believe that anyone in the same generation as him had such strength. However, in the Merchant Union's main hall, all the saints were second senior sister's servants. Could it be that the enemy had been hiding by second senior sister's side? The more it is like this, the more you have to remain calm. You have to ensure your own safety first before you think of a way to save others. Remember, the path to immortality is one of mutual deception. Don't trust anyone easily. After saying this, Inu looked deeply at Zhang Juji and disappeared again. Second senior sister. Fifth senior sister. I hope all of you can be safe. Zhang Juji gritted his teeth and looked at the towering ancient city in the distance. In the end, he did not dare to act rashly and fell into silence. At this moment, in the Merchant Union's hall, Hua Mingxi's beautiful face was gloomy. She held a voice transmission spirit talisman in her hand and seemed to be hesitating. This voice transmission talisman was personally given to Zhang Juji when he went out to look for Lei Yun. Originally, it was for the latter to ask for her help when he was in danger. However, the talisman still hadn't lit up. Even with Hua Mingxi's scheming mind, she still couldn't figure out how little junior brother could be a devil. What was going on with the vast demonic aura on his body? However, after all, he was her junior brother. Even if Hua Mingxi had all kinds of doubts in her heart, she still decided to take the initiative to contact Zhang Juji and ask for the reason of the matter. But, just as she clenched her fists and the spiritual energy around her surged, a cold voice suddenly came from outside the hall. Is young Master Hua here? Hearing the voice, Hua Mingxi's pretty face flashed with a hint of surprise. She quickly put away the talisman and looked into the distance. At this moment, she saw an extremely beautiful woman in purple walking over slowly from outside the hall. Behind her, there was a white-haired, white-bearded old man with a rough face. Even though Hua Mingxi was extremely beautiful, she still felt ashamed of her inferiority when she looked at the woman in front of her. Her facial features were exquisite and three-dimensional. Her skin was like the best immortal jade, emitting a dense immortal light. Her beautiful hair was like clouds, making her jade-like neck look even fairer. The loose purple-gold long robe dragged on the ground. It was embroidered with auspicious clouds and rosy mist, looking noble and grand. In short, this was a wild and elegant woman. Looking at her age, she should be more than 1,000 years old. Although her aura was only in the venerable realm, no one dared to underestimate her. Around her, Huamingxi could feel a faint lightning power. Although it was only a wisp, it made people feel deep fear from the bottom of their hearts. Even the old man behind her, although he didn't emit any aura, his every movement made people feel extremely oppressed. Who are you? At the same time, in the north of Dao Heaven City, Gu Chaoxiai stood in front of a table in the courtyard. Her imperial robe was draped over her shoulders. It wasn't tied up or tied. Even her black hair was casually scattered behind her. At this moment, she was holding a jade brush and holding her breath as she wrote something with concentration. "My wife, what are you writing?" Until a gentle laugh came from beside her. Gu Chaoxiai's beautiful face had a rare trace of nervousness and embarrassment. She reached out her jade-like hand and crushed the paper on the table. Only then did her expression return to its usual coldness. "You're back? My wife, what are you doing behind my back?" Ling Zhao's lips curled into a sinister smile. He hugged Gu Chaoxiai from behind. For some reason, every time he saw the woman in front of him, he would feel an inexplicable feeling. This feeling was amiable and comforting. At first, it was very weak, but as time passed, it became stronger and stronger. Originally, Ling Xiao thought that it was because of Gu Chaoxiai's luck, but gradually Ling Xiao realized that wasn't the case. This feeling seemed to originate from his blood and bones. It had nothing to do with rational thoughts. It was just an inexplicable sense of security. Could it be that this woman was tied to the sky demon in her previous life? "Let go of me." The more Gu Chaoxiai struggled, the tighter she was pressed against the young man's chest. "You don't want to talk? All right then, it seems that your husband can only use the family law." Ling Xiao. Gu Chaoxiai's eyes trembled as if she had thought of something terrible. The coldness on her face disappeared and turned into a pleading expression. "I have something to tell you." "What is it?" "Wait until your husband finishes using the family law. It won't do if there are no rules." Ling Xiao smiled playfully. He carried Gu Chaoxiai by the waist and walked towards the room. Ling Xiao. Lei Wu. In the courtyard, the clouds and rain suddenly fell. A begonia bloomed brightly, swaying with the wind, sparkling and beautiful, all the way until nightfall. Ling Xiao stood in front of the window and looked at the bright moon above. No one knew what he was thinking. On the bed, Gu Chaoxiai was wrapped in a blanket, only revealing a slightly tired face. But at this moment, her eyes seemed to have a complicated look as she stared blankly at the figure in front of the window. There was a beauty in the immortal phoenix who stood aloof from the world. A glance could topple a city, and a second glance could topple a country. How could a demon be so talented? Could it be that the world was really stupid and deceived by immortals? "You're awake?" When the young man turned around with a gentle smile, Gu Chaoxiai was startled and hurriedly closed her eyes. Seeing this, Ling Zhao's smile deepened. "You're not awake? Then have a good rest. I'm going out for a few days." Ling Xiao. However, at the instant Ling Xiao turned around, the woman on the bed suddenly opened her eyes, and a wisp of seriousness appeared on her beautiful face. The immortal phoenix guard I left in the demon region sent news that Huamingxi sent people to the Lightning Dragon clan, and the eldest young miss and grand elder of this clan have already arrived at Dao Heaven City. Chapter 1182. The eldest daughter of the Thunder Dragon tribe? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and nodded. "Don't worry, my wife. No matter who comes, I won't let anyone hurt you." As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao didn't hesitate any longer, and his figure instantly vanished on the spot. Gu Chaoxiai's red lips trembled. She wanted to say more, but she didn't think it was necessary. This damn sense of security! Although she didn't attend the 10,000 Geniuses banquet today, she knew everything that happened. Whether it was Ling Xiao killing Wang Yan, or Zhang Juji revealing his whereabouts and running away, she wasn't surprised at all. She had long seen how this young man treated all living beings as chess pieces and how he controlled everything. Naturally, she believed that he could easily play Zhang Juji, Hua Mingxi, and the other evildoers in the palm of his hand. However, what surprised Gu Chaoxiai was the 2 ancient poems that Ling Xiao composed at the end of the 10,000 Geniuses banquet. These 2 poems could crush the Taoist heart of the successor of Wensheng's immortal palace. It was easy to imagine how talented they were. Especially the first one. It was obviously made for Gu Chaoxiai alone. How could such a beautiful poem be so touching if it was emotionless? It was simple and deep. At this moment, Gu Chaoxiai finally believed that even if he was evil, cruel, bloodthirsty, and deceiving people, he was sincere to her. Ling Xiao, I will walk down this path with you. Beat. The destined girl's love route has been reforged. Congratulations to the host for gaining 20,000 luck points and 200,000 villain points. In the sky of Dao City, Ling Xiao walked on the stone path of the ancient street. He looked at the people around him calmly. Although Zhang Juji's demonic aura caused a commotion just now. However, to the cultivators in the city, as long as it wasn't the sky demon, there was nothing to worry about. Now, as these 2 ancient poems spread to the world, the name of immortal Phoenix Empress Gu Chaoxiai would thoroughly resound throughout the Azure continent, and Ling Xiao's flaw seemed to become even clearer. With the Lady of Destiny's providence concealing him, no one would easily suspect Ling Xiao's identity. Moreover, Gu Chaoxiai had long been secretly paving the way for Ling Xiao's immortal path. With her luck, anyone who threatened Ling Xiao would not be able to escape her notice. Why else do you think she would have sent a random person to coincide with Zhang Juji's return to the Heavenly Wolf clan? Don't ask. If you ask, it's your luck. But the root of her love was reforged, but she never submitted? Gu Chaoxiai, should I say that you are proud and aloof, or you are too guarded? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and raised his head to look at the majestic ancient palace in front of him. A gentle smile immediately appeared on his face. If Gu Chaoxiai could find out the information, how could he not? He didn't have the luck of this woman, but the power in his hands was not something that people of the same generation could imagine. Now, the secret guards arranged by Layered Shadow were still in the extreme south. How could any movement in the Lightning Dragon clan escape his eyes? A day ago, when Hua Mingxi sent experts to the extreme south, Ling Xiao already knew about it. Even the Lightning Dragon Great Elder, who was secretly gathering information, had already been targeted by the secret guards. However, just as Ling Xiao was about to send experts to kill the Great Elder and the expert from the Merchant Union, he received news that the one who came to Dao Heaven City this time was actually Ziyan. In this way, there would be no more flaws in all the arrangement. After all, no one would have thought that the current young miss of the Lightning Dragon clan, who had been away from the clan for 1,000 years, would be Ling Xiao's servant. When the 2 of them went to the upper domain together, Ziyan didn't appear in front of anyone. Instead, she directly returned to the Lightning Dragon clan. Now, in the entire Azure Sky world, other than the people around Ling Xiao, only the Lightning Lord knew about their relationship. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Ziyan had warned the Lightning Lord that her relationship with the young master could not be told to anyone. Only then would the Lightning Dragon clan have the possibility of ascending to the extreme south. As a chess piece, Ziyan naturally knew that she had to hide in the dark to be most useful. What? Lei Yun's soul tablet is broken? In the Merchant Union's main hall, Hua Mingxi suddenly stood up. Her face was inexplicably pale. That's right. According to my father's speculation, Lei Yun might have encountered a demon, a real demon. Ziyan nodded silently with a grave expression. Lei Yun's death had nothing to do with her. She only came to Dao Heaven City to see the young master. Yesterday, she had already sent a voice transmission to the young master and knew that he was in the city. What surprised Ziyan was that Lei Yun actually died in the young master's hands. However, after thinking about it, Ziyan understood the reason behind it. The young master's actions were probably to let her enjoy the glory of the Lightning Dragon clan alone. What a joke! That old dragon actually wanted her to borrow the young master's strength to find the enemy who killed Lei Yun. Yes, the young master has found it. Today, she took the initiative to come here to cooperate with the young master to put on a good show. Otherwise, why do you think Ling Xiao refused Hua Mingxi's invitation and gave her the chance to secretly send a voice transmission to Zhang Juji? With Ziyan here, no matter what Zhang Juji said or how he tried to prove his innocence, it would seem pale and powerless. It would even make people feel that he had ulterior motive. After all, what kind of good intentions could a demon have? What? Encountered a demon? Hua Mingxi's eyes narrowed slightly. Her heart thumped. Was it a coincidence? Was this demon related to Zhang Juji? That's right. Moreover, my Lightning Dragon clan now suspects that this demon might be related to the Sky Demon. Just as Ziyan's eyes were filled with coldness and she was preparing for the next scapegoat according to Ling Xiao's words, a shout suddenly came from outside the hall. "Young master, Lord Ling Xiao is here." "What? Why didn't you inform me earlier?" Hua Mingxi was stunned. She hurriedly got up and was about to walk out. "Mingxi, why are you so polite?" Right at this moment, a warm and low laughter suddenly sounded out, and Ling Xiao's figure strode in from outside the hall. "Young master." Hua Mingxi's face lit up. Of course, Mingxi doesn't want young master to be polite. In the future, young master can treat my Sky Saint Business Alliance as your own clan. That won't do. If I run to you all day, how will Mingxi get married in the future? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His eyes were filled with deep meaning, but it made Hua Mingxi's body tremble. There was an inexplicable expectation in her heart. "Young master." "Oh? Mingxi has a guest? Looks like I came at a bad time. I'll come back later." "Young master. Mingxi has something to discuss with you." Hua Mingxi's expression became anxious, as if she was panicking as she grabbed onto Ling Xiao's arm. However, when she saw the trace of astonishment flickering between Ling Xiao's brows, she suddenly let go and took half a step back. Her beautiful face was already flushed red. "Young master, let me introduce you. This is the young miss of the Thunder Dragon clan, Lei Yan. This time, I came to the Dao Heaven City to investigate the matter of Lei Yun's death." "What? Lei Yun is dead?" Ling Xiao's expression changed drastically as a hint of anxiety flashed in his eyes. Chapter 1183. So, it's Master Ling Xiao. Ziyan stood up and bowed to Ling Xiao. "I've long heard that Master Ling Xiao is righteous and righteous. Lei Yan has long admired you. This time, I came to Dao Sky City to search for the traces of demons. I hope that young master can take care of me. My Lightning Dragon tribe will definitely remember this." Hearing Ziyan's words, Hua Mingxi's face immediately revealed a hint of surprise. Just now, when she was talking to this young miss of the Lightning Dragon tribe, Lei Yan had a proud attitude. But now, facing Master Ling Xiao, why did she suddenly become humble? Although this was reasonable, wasn't Lei Yan a little too direct? She almost threw herself into the young master's arms. "Slaying demons is the duty of cultivators of my generation. Miss Lei Yan is treating me as an outsider. Tell me the details." Ling Xiao sighed and looked at Hua Mingxi meaningfully. His expression was unprecedentedly serious. At this moment, Hua Mingxi also had a worried expression. Especially the meaning in Ling Xiao's eyes. She had already guessed many things. "I'm afraid that young master has the same thought as me." Zhang Juji. Even if Hua Mingxi was unwilling to believe it, how could there be such a coincidence in this world? When the two of them traveled together, Lei Yun's cultivation was clearly much higher than his and she had the Lightning Dragon tribe's foundation. But she died, and Zhang Juji fell into the stupa abyss and walked out safely. Now that he escaped by turning into a demon, it seemed to confirm Hua Mingxi's guess. A few days ago, Lei Yun's soul tablet suddenly shattered. According to my tribe's investigation, she died in the stupa abyss. There were remnants of demonic intent at the scene. Ziyan's tone was cold, and her brows were filled with killing intent. Moreover, my tribe's great elder had investigated along the way. Lei Yun had been traveling with the third young master of the Heavenly Wolf tribe, Songyin. Oh, he has another name, Zhang Juji. I'm afraid that the two of them have met with misfortune. This, Hua Mingxi's beautiful eyes narrowed, but she still had a trace of hope in her heart. My Thunder Dragon clan doesn't have any mortal enemies, and it was Lei Yun's first time entering the Azure continent. It is really puzzling that she was killed in such a baffling manner. As far as I know, Lei Yun and Zhang Juji were both apprenticed to the demon clan's prophet, Qing Mu, and this was the first time the latter had appeared in the world, so he had no enemies. So who was it that wanted to kill them? Therefore, there was a high probability that they had encountered a demon, even the Sky Demon. This time, I came to Dao Heaven City in hopes of working together with young Master Hua and Lord Ling Xiao to find the traces of the demon and find out the truth. Ziyan was neither servile nor overbearing. Ling Xiao had long since taught her this. Of course, when it comes to framing someone, it should be done by someone else. We can verify it from the side, and only then can people believe it without a doubt. Otherwise, if I keep my certificate, it will inevitably arouse suspicion and jealousy. Furthermore, Ziyan didn't suspect Zhang Juji at all. She was just stating the fact that Lei Yun and Long Chun had very likely been killed by the devil. However, Zhang Juji didn't die and exposed the devil's will. In this way, wouldn't the truth be very clear? Even if Hua Mingxi still had doubts in her heart, Ling Xiao would personally verify it for her. The matter of Zhang Juji killing Lei Yun would be completely confirmed. Don't forget, this Son of Heaven's mandate still had Lei Yun's accompanying divine lightning tribulation. Once Hua Mingxi confirmed that Zhang Juji was the devil, her second senior sister would announce it to the world. Wouldn't that be very exciting and convincing? I, Ling Xiao, the light of righteousness, how can I casually frame others? You see, Zhang Juji, this bastard is someone who puts righteousness before family. Zhang Juji, I'm afraid it's that Zhang Jiu who escaped after turning into a devil, right? Young Master Hua, shouldn't you give us an explanation? Ling Zhao's indifferent words made Ziyan frown. She looked at Hua Mingxi with a gloomy expression. Young Master Hua, what exactly is going on? Could it be Zhang Juji is still alive? How is that possible? Sigh, Hua Mingxi sighed softly. Especially Ling Zhao's current attitude, she already had a feeling of fear and trepidation. She knew that if she continued to hide anything from the young master, no matter if it was her or the Hua family, they would face a calamity. Young master, Miss Lei Yan, to be honest, actually, I already know Zhang Juji. Hua Mingxi's face was solemn. She stood up and bowed towards Ling Xiao and Ziyan. She seemed to be guilty. What? I was wondering how a third young master of the Heavenly Wolf clan could hide his whereabouts in the Sky Dao City. Even the experts of my Thunder Dragon clan couldn't find him. It turns out that the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union was protecting him. Ziyan's voice was cold. She suddenly stood up. Great Elder! Buzz. The void in the hall suddenly fluctuated. An old and burly figure appeared, coldly looking at Hua Mingxi and Ling Xiao below. When the three of them were talking just now, this great elder of the Thunder Dragon clan had been guarding outside the hall, not daring to step out. However, when he heard the rage in Ziyan's voice, he showed himself without any hesitation. Now that Lei Yun was dead, Lei Yan was the only hope of the Thunder Dragon clan. Moreover, although this young girl's bloodline was not as pure as Lei Yun's, she had unexpectedly obtained the recognition of the Thunder Dragon ancestor. Thus, she had manifested the sacred image, and merged with the origin divine scale of the Thunder Dragon clan that was regarded as a sacred object. Furthermore, in the eyes of the Thunder Dragon clan's experts, even if Lei Yun was not dead, the Thunder Dragon clan's luck was no longer with her, but with Lei Yin. Young Master Hua. Although my Thunder Dragon clan cannot be compared to the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union, you better give me an explanation today. What happened to Zhang Juji? Why did he turn into a devil and escape? Ziyan's face was cold. Purple lightning swam around her body. She was like an ancient thunder god, emitting a domineering aura. 9th grade Exalted Realm, 6,000 points of luck. Ancient Thunder Dragon Tyrant Body and Divine Soul. From the moment Ling Xiao entered the hall, he had already seen the changes in this little wild cat. Although 6,000 points of luck was far from the daughter of destiny, with luck there would be changes. Otherwise, no matter how loyal Ziyan was, no matter how many opportunities she had, her upper limit would not be too high. At most, she would be a plaything in his arms. Miss Lei Yin. Ling Zhao's finger lightly knocked on the wooden chair, and called out in a calm voice. Don't be impatient. Let young Master Hua explain the matter. I think, with young Master's identity, you will not joke about the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union's fate. Yes. Lei Yin instinctively bowed, causing Hua Mingxi's face to freeze. This Lei Yin really worships young Master. With such an attitude, did she really think of herself as young Master's servant? Great Elder. Ziyan waved her hand lightly and sat down again. As for the Thunder Dragon Great Elder, he slowly disappeared and left the hall. Miss Hua, I hope you can give me an explanation. Otherwise, even if I want to help you, my Dao heart will not allow anyone to trample on the justice of the human clan. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold. Although his voice was gentle, the killing intent contained in it caused Hua Mingxi's body to tremble and almost collapse. Yes. Hua Mingxi took a deep breath. Her face had already turned serious. To tell you the truth, Zhang Juji, Lei Yun, and I are actually martial sisters. Chapter 1184. Senior sister and junior brother? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. There was some doubt in his eyes. I know about the relationship between Zhang Juji and Lei Yun. I didn't expect Miss Hua to be that prime's disciple. However, Ziyan nodded. She wasn't too surprised. That's right. The three of us have all become disciples of Exalted Greenwood. However, Master has always kept a low profile, and he doesn't allow us to use his name to move about in the world. Thus, other than us senior and junior sisters, only his direct relatives know about this. Hua Mingxi sighed and looked at Ling Xiao with a complicated gaze. With young Master's character, there was no harm in telling him such a secret. She only hoped that young Master would be less dissatisfied with her. This could be considered a good fortune. A few days ago, Zhang Juji suddenly came to Sky Dao City. He said that he had an appointment with junior sister Lei Yun to meet in Sky Dao City. However, junior sister didn't show up. Therefore, I sent people to the Lightning Dragon tribe. Young Master, Miss Lei Yin, if I really knew that he was a demon, I definitely wouldn't have protected him. Hearing that, Ling Xiao immediately nodded in agreement. This made Hua Mingxi relax a little. Miss Hua, I wonder if you know anything about this junior brother? That master of yours. Where is he now? What is his background? What is the matter with the demonic intent on Zhang Juji? At this moment, Ling Zhao's face was clearly somewhat solemn. Now, it seemed that Lei Yun's death was definitely related to Zhang Juji. However, could his demonic will have something to do with Greenwood Paragon? It wouldn't be too much for me to use this as an excuse to inquire about it, right? I don't know either. I only heard about this junior brother from a few other senior sisters. I only know that his background is pitiful. He was taken in by Master and cultivated for more than 200 years. He has just appeared in the world now. Hua Mingxi shook her head sadly. Her heart was already in a mess. However, I can guarantee with my life that Master will definitely not take in an evil demon as a disciple. I think there must be some other secret. Hua Mingxi really didn't know about her master's background. However, although her master lived in seclusion, his character was upright and he cared about the common people. However, for some unknown reason, he was forced to live in seclusion in the Heaven and Earth Imperial Court and never came out. In that case, it would appear that I'll have to find Zhang Juji first in order to figure out his secrets. Ling Xiao suddenly raised his head and looked at Hua Mingxi. His gaze was extremely cold. Miss Hua, you should have a way to find him. To tell you the truth, when Zhang Juji first came to Dao Heaven City, I gave him a voice transmission talisman. So, how about this? It's already late today. Tomorrow morning, Miss Hua will invite him to a secret place. I will personally test the devil will in his body. At the same time, I will see what Zhang Juji wants to do. Ling Xiao frowned slightly and looked at Hua Mingxi meaningfully. Miss Hua, there are some things that I don't know if I should say. Young master, please speak your mind. From the looks of it now, it's very likely that Lei Yun died in Zhang Juji's hands. The reason why he approached you is very likely because he has other motive. Today, when I chased him out of the city, I once sensed that there seemed to be another divine consciousness fluctuation on his body. In other words, young master, I understand. Hua Mingxi's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, without Ling Xiao saying anything, she had already guessed many things. Zhang Juji's identity was originally not too suspicious. With her understanding of her master, it was impossible for him to take a devil as his disciple and teach him for 200 years. Moreover, the cultivation technique that Zhang Juji used today was her master's ultimate technique, the Heaven Origin Immortal technique. Therefore, it was very likely that he had fallen into the devil path recently. Buddha Abyss. This devil abyss was originally the Qing Tsang Forbidden Area. It was said that there was a great devil in the abyss that fed on blood spirit. However, no one who entered the abyss could escape from the devil's hands. Since Zhang Juji admitted that he had fallen into the devil abyss, he walked out safely. Perhaps the current Zhang Juji was no longer the little junior brother from before. Young master, don't worry. My Hua clan has a courtyard in the Spirit Creek Valley outside Dao Heaven City. Normally, no one would barge in. Tomorrow, I will ask Zhang Juji to come here. However, young master, if he is really a devil with our strength, Hua Mingxi wanted to say something but stopped. Although Lei Yun was not as strong as her, she was still the young master of the Lightning Dragon clan. She had many trump cards in her hands. But even so, she still died. Lord Ling Xiao was unparalleled in the world, but he was still a member of the younger generation. If everything was as she had expected, perhaps with their strength, it would be very difficult to truly subdue this devil. Since that devil dared to come here so brazenly, he must have something to rely on. However, if we arrange for experts to accompany him, it is very likely that we will alert him. Don't worry, it is absolutely impossible for him to kill me. Tomorrow I will test that devil first. Miss Hua, you only need to lure him out and everything will come to light. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Then, he turned to look at Ziyan. Miss Lei Yin, you should stay by my side. Otherwise, once that devil knows of your origin, it is very likely that he will harm you. Thank you, young master. Ziyan's pretty face lit up as she hurriedly replied. Miss Hua, although I believe in your character and believe that the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance will not shelter an evil demon, I still want to remind you that this matter is of great importance. As far as I know, the Sky Demon has appeared and is wantonly killing the current generation's geniuses and collecting blood spirit. It is very likely that he is using this to cultivate. You must pay attention to your safety. Tomorrow, I will help you clear your name and clear the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance's name. After finishing his words, Ling Shao did not hesitate any longer. He stood up and walked out of the hall. Behind him, Lei Yan bowed slightly and followed closely. Only when the two figures were far away did Hua Mingxi's face gradually turn serious. She clenched her jade-like hand and a bright golden talisman suddenly appeared in her hand. Now that Lei Yan had come personally, it would be difficult to avoid this matter. Once she made the slightest mistake, it was very likely that it would lead to the destruction of the Hua clan and even the heavenly sacred business alliance. After all, sometimes people did not care about the truth at all. They were more willing to believe what others said and the false appearance on the surface. Therefore, people were slow-witted. Fortunately, Lord Ling Shao was still willing to believe in her. As long as she cooperated with her young master to find Zhang Juji and find out what this junior brother had experienced in the Stupa abyss, all the disasters would be eliminated. Sigh. Finally, Hua Mingxi sighed softly. Her eyes were slightly tired. With her master's temperament, even if she returned to the Heaven and Earth Imperial Court now, he would not care much about the matters of the world. After all, when she and her senior sister left the mountain, her master had said that their future had nothing to do with him. Life and death were fated. Wealth and honor were up to the heavens. Forget it. Let's do as young master said and ask Zhang Juji to appear first. Junior brother. Thinking of this, Hua Mingxi's hand suddenly bloomed with spiritual light. She poured it into the voice transmission talisman and waited quietly. Second senior sister. After a long while, Zhang Juji's slightly surprised voice came from the other side of the divine talisman. Where are you? Coldness flashed across Hua Mingxi's eyes. If this person was really the evil spirit who had taken over her junior brother, she would avenge her junior brother and fifth junior sister no matter what. Second senior sister. I am in the forest outside Dao Heaven City. Senior sister. I am sorry. Junior brother has caused you trouble. Chapter 1185. Now is not the time to talk about this. Little junior brother, what is the demonic intent in your body? Hua Mingxi clenched her teeth. She had seen everything with her own eyes. However, there were still some things that made her puzzled. For example, if Lei Yun had really died in Zhang Juji's hands, he could have hidden in the dark. Why would he take the risk to come to Dao Heaven City to look for her? Moreover, even if he had other motives, why did he not stop her when she sent experts to the Lightning Dragon tribe? Or did he really think that he could cover up everything with a lie? She wanted Zhang Juji to use his full strength to fight for the 3,000 moments. However, although Wang Yan's attacks were ruthless, Zhang Juji could have admitted defeat and surrendered. Why did he have to expose his demonic intent? Second senior sister. It's a long story. I can only tell you that I did not do anything to betray Master or his Dao heart. Zhang Juji was silent for a while before he said in a deep voice, It's too late to say this now. You have revealed your demonic intent in front of everyone today. You have become the target of public criticism. Fortunately, Lord Ling Shao stood his ground and swore on his Dao heart to find out the truth. That's why this matter did not continue to spread. Little junior brother, if you have any difficulties, you can tell me. Second senior sister. I know it's useless to say anything now. I can't let others know my secret. How about this? Let's meet and I'll show you something. You will understand then. Zhang Juji was more or less on guard now. Although the voice in the voice transmission talisman was undoubtedly Hua Mingxi's, who knew if there were others around her or if she was being threatened. With Yin Yu's strength, she could naturally find out if there were any experts around Hua Mingxi as long as they met. He was a little worried about the voice transmission talisman. After all, the appearance of the Rakshasa tribe might be a sign of the end of the world. The Rakshasa tribe? I wonder if he is the one that Master mentioned. The contemporary taboo, the ghost fog rising? Alright. Someone will definitely keep an eye on the Sky Saint Business Alliance tonight. Tomorrow, at noon, when Tao Heaven City is bustling with noise and excitement, I will wait for you at the Spirit Creek Valley in the north of Tao Heaven City. Hua Mingxi took a deep breath. After Zhang Juji agreed, she kept the voice transmission talisman and looked at the sky outside of the palace. The current situation was no longer something that she, the young mistress of the Hua family, could control. Somehow, she was like a stone rolling down from a high mountain. Even if she was unwilling, she couldn't make a decision. Once Lord Ling Xiao couldn't find the traces of the devil, there would definitely be people who would suspect the Hua family and Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance. By then, the entire Hua family would be implicated, let alone the position of the young master of the Shang Alliance. In these troubled times, the Sky Demon had appeared. Anyone who had anything to do with demons would become the enemy of the entire human orthodoxy. What's more, the Azure Fiend had been running rampant in recent months. In the past, the Sky Demon was a vassal of the Gone Heaven Divine sect. It slaughtered the common people, collected blood spirits, and cultivated heaven-defying evil arts. One day, the Wolf King Tsang Ning colluded with the Sky Demon and killed thousands of geniuses in the Supreme Secret Area. The Wolf King, Tsang Ning? Just now, Lei Yen said that Yi Tiandi's true identity was the third young master of the Sky Wolf clan? Suddenly, Hua Mingxi's body and mind trembled. She felt a chill rising from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head in an instant. Could it be that Yi Tiandi wasn't possessed by someone, but, in Dao Sky City, Ziyan and Ling Xiao walked side by side with a bright smile on their faces. At this moment, emotions were flowing in her eyes. She couldn't wait to turn into her true form and jump into her young master's arms. When the two of them walked out of the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance, she had followed Ling Zhao's instructions and left the First Elder to monitor Hua Mingxi's actions. Now, there was no need to hide anymore. Young Master, do you think that Hua Mingxi will secretly inform Zhang Juji? The current Ziyan was more confident than before. She seemed to have been reborn and exuded an endless immortal charm. No. Ling Xiao shook his head. His eyes were cold and indifferent. If this Hua Mingxi was a pure and innocent young lady, she might have reminded Zhang Juji on account of their relationship as masters and disciples. However, this girl was the young master of the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance's Hua family. She was meticulous and calculative. Such a person would weigh the gains and losses before doing anything. Now that Zhang Juji had turned into a devil, the world had witnessed it with their own eyes. This stain could not be erased no matter what. At this time, Hua Mingxi would definitely not offend Ling Xiao and Ziyan because of this. One had to know that she could take out a divine sword to gain a good impression of Ling Xiao. If Ling Xiao's guess was right, this young master of the Hua family must be plotting something. It was either fame or fortune. In short, it couldn't be love. He, young master. Are you surprised that the one from the Lightning Dragon clan is me? A smile surged on Ziyan's face. She was about to reach out and hold Ling Zhao's arm when the void in front of her changed. The two of them immediately disappeared. Does the Lightning Lord know about our relationship? In the sky above the realm, Ling Zhao's expression was indifferent. Even his tone was extremely indifferent. Oh, young master, please forgive me. Ziyan's eyes trembled slightly. She bowed deeply towards Ling Xiao. When I returned to the clan, my mother had already died of illness. However, the Lightning Dragon clan did not worship her memorial tablet. Thus you used my reputation to scare the Lightning Master? Young Master, Ziyan knows her mistake. However, young Master, please don't worry. I have already warned the Lightning Lord that this matter cannot be known to a third person. Otherwise, the Lightning Dragon clan will be annihilated. Moreover, now that I have merged with the Ancestors' divine scale, I can control this clan at any time. If young master is still worried, I will return to the clan immediately and think of a way to eliminate the Lightning Lord. Ziyan's tone was resolute and not perfunctory at all. The ancestors' divine scale was the foundation of the Lightning Dragon clan. Not only did it contain the ancestors' divine might, but it also inherited the ancestors' bloodline and lightning physique. In other words, the current her was the true fortune of the Lightning Dragon clan. Whether it was the ancestors or ordinary elders, in their eyes, she was much more important than a sage lightning lord. In the ancient clans, whether it was demons or humans, they were already extremely indifferent to family. Moreover, those ancestors who were in seclusion all year round had not even seen the descendants of the clan. What they cared more about was the continuation and prosperity of the clan. Now that Ziyan had obtained the protection of the ancestor, in the eyes of many experts of the Lightning Dragon clan, she was a unique blessing blessed by the heavens. She had 10,000 reasons to kill a mere Thunder Lord of the Sage Realm. Although the Lightning Lord was her birth father, the humiliation and suffering that Ziyan and her mother had gone through was not something that time could erase. If it was not for Ling Xiao, she might have died in the hands of the sacred sect of the lower world. In fact, if it was not for young Master, her mother would not have been able to enter the Lightning Dragon Ancestral Hall even until her death. Ziyan had always remembered this kindness in her heart and did not dare to be careless for even a moment. Forget it. I still have a use for the Lightning Dragon clan. Quickly take control of this clan. Hearing this, Ling Xiao shook his head and descended from the sky. If it were not for Ziyan's fortune, perhaps he really would have sent someone to kill the Lightning Lord. But now, he still needed this person to help Ziyan take control of the Lightning Dragon clan, so he would let him live for now. After all, once the 10 lords of the Fiend clan died, great waves would definitely rise again. What Ling Xiao needed to do now was to hide behind the scenes and wait for an opportunity to plot against the Fiend clan. Of course, even if the Lightning Lord exposed the relationship between Ling Xiao and Ziyan, it would not affect him much. After all, he and Ziyan now had a legitimate relationship. With Ling Xiao's charm, was it surprising that the first miss of the Lightning Dragon clan would be willing to be his servant? Damn. Chapter 1186. Young Master, wait for me. Seeing that Ling Xiao was no longer angry, Ziyan's face lit up with joy. She turned into a white blur and jumped into his arms. Her furry little head kept rubbing against him. Young Master, Ziyan will not disappoint you. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. He reached out and gently stroked the fur on Ziyan's back. Instantly, the little kitten trembled with a long-lost joy. Meow. Outside Dao Heaven City, at Gu Linshin's place, Zhang Juji looked at the voice transmission talisman in his hand and seemed to have sunk into silence. Just now, although Hua Mingxi's tone was calm, that kind of suppressed indifference still made him feel an indescribable grievance. It was clear that Hua Mingxi was now suspicious of him. But apart from Yin, he didn't hide anything from his second senior sister. That's right, there was demonic intent on him, but it came from the treasure in his hand. What was the difference between good and evil in a treasure? Didn't it all depend on who was holding it? I, Zhang Juji, have a flawless Tao heart and an invincible sacred body. My immortal path is broad and open. How could I fall into the demonic path? Juji, are you really going to see your second senior sister? Yin Yu's voice came from his soul sea. Zhang Juji nodded slightly and said firmly, I have to explain. Even if I can't find the person who framed me, I have to warn my second senior sister so that she won't be killed. Then have you ever thought that your second senior sister has been misled by a scoundrel and deliberately lured you out? With Yin Yu's thoughts, she naturally wouldn't easily trust anyone. The immortal path was vast, and all living beings fought to cross it. For hundreds of thousands of years, she had already seen through the disputes and deceit. Not to mention the 2 senior sisters and junior brothers she had never met before, even her master and Sai. Didn't they turn against each other in the end and fight until the sky turned dark and the 9 heavens collapsed? Moreover, Hua Mingxi always gave Yu the feeling that she was too sly. This kind of woman wasn't worthy of her trust. Senior Yu, don't worry. I'm well aware that if second senior sister wants to harm me, she can ask for my location now, and send the experts of the Union to come here. Why would she go through so much trouble to wait until noon tomorrow? Zhang Juji shook his head slightly. From the bottom of his heart, he was still willing to believe his 5 senior sisters. What's more, he had just been born and had yet to make a name for himself. If he already carried the name of an evil demon, what would happen in the future? He seemed to have become famous all over the world. But this is not what I want to be known throughout the world. I suggest that you leave Dao Heaven City right now. Otherwise, you might die a horrible death. This kind of unknown enemy was truly frightening. Zhang Juji's talent and temperament were excellent, but he still exposed his devil will in front of everyone. One could only imagine how terrifying the person behind the scenes who controlled everything was. Haha, Senior Yu, if you flee whenever you encounter trouble, then your path to immortality would be a bit too miserable. Zhang Juji shook his head. His face suddenly turned serious. Ever since he was born, he seemed to have been on the run. Now that 5th senior sister's fate was unknown, he had long felt unbearably guilty in his heart. This time, if he were to abandon his 2nd senior sister and escape from Dao Heaven City, his Dao heart would crumble if anything were to happen to his 2nd senior sister and he was being toyed with by someone else. Just who was it that was secretly targeting them? Could it be it was Master's enemy? Yu sighed softly but did not speak in the end. She could understand. A talented young man like Zhang Juji would have some pride and a bottom line. Even if he knew the road ahead was bumpy, he would find it hard to take a step back. Or else, he would have no morals. How different would he be from those greedy and cowardly villains? He was the son of destiny. Of course, he had to be loyal and righteous. He had to press forward to prove his flawless Dao heart. You call this brainless? Even if there are 3,000 strong enemies, I will press on. This is clearly hot-blooded. The next day, as soon as the sky brightened, Hua Mingxi snuck out of the city and went to a quiet valley in the north. This valley was called the Valley of Spiritual Creek. It was the Hua clan's private property. Normally, no one would set foot here. The valley was surrounded by a sea of ancient trees that covered the sky and the sun. It was full of vitality. There was a small stream that flowed through the cracks. It tinkled and made people feel comfortable. In the middle of the valley there was a small thatched courtyard. It was simple and unique. There was a stone table and a pavilion. It was a good place to live in seclusion. Hua Mingxi's figure descended from the sky. She first tidied up the things in the courtyard. Then, she took out some bottles from her universe ring. She burned some incense and boiled some water, waiting for Ling Xiao to come. At this moment, in the realm, the young man who was originally sitting cross-legged in the sky suddenly opened his eyes and looked down. Ziyan had already changed her makeup and was standing there quietly. However, compared to yesterday, there was no trace of exhaustion on the face of the lightning dragon's successor. Instead, there was a bright and beautiful feeling. Especially when she looked at Ling Xiao, her eyes were filled with a touch of moving charm. It was like a deep pool with ripples. She wanted to say something but was shy. You have news? Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky and stood beside Ziyan. Last night, he had gained a deep understanding of Ziyan's recent encounters and the many changes in her body. Although her body was still a dragon cat with soft fur, her divine soul already had saint might. It was the true lightning dragon's ancestral soul. Back in the lower world, Ling Xiao had already known that Ziyan's talent was not her physical body and bloodline, but the power of her divine soul. Now it seemed that her ability to communicate with the will of the lightning dragon ancestor and obtain his inheritance was more or less related to this. Yes, the Grand Elder sent news that Hua Mingxi has already left the city and is heading to the Spirit Creek Valley. Ziyen smiled brightly, but coldness flowed in her eyes. Only now did she realize that compared to cultivating in seclusion in the Lightning Dragon tribe, she wanted to be by her young master's side and watch him control everything and scheme against the world. Tell the Grand Elder to keep an eye on the Sky Saint Business Alliance. Leave everything else to us. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. With a thought, he and Ziyen disappeared from the realm. When the two figures reappeared, they were already above the Spirit Creek Valley. Behind the two, a figure covered in a black robe stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were gloomy. Gui Ying, hide in the dark. Without my order, no matter what happens, don't show yourself. Ling Xiao said indifferently. The wisp of devil will he sensed yesterday still gave him a very familiar feeling. Although he did not know what secrets Zhang Juji was hiding, it was not wrong to be safe. What if the divine soul of a supreme great devil was really hiding in his head? Oh, it would definitely be delicious. Gui Ying's methods were originally to hide and assassinate. With him hiding in the dark and Ling Xiao holding the death substitute puppet and heavenly supreme corpse puppet, it was absolutely safe. Now, this Xiao Juji was easy to kill. After all, Ling Xiao still had a luck-plundering talisman. However, compared to harvesting it, Ling Xiao was more inclined to give it some special mission. Good fortune Saint Body? Wasn't this treasure-hunting dog's nose more sensitive than Song Ning's? Oh no, it should be. The heavens were about to give him a great responsibility. Chapter 1187. Yes, my lord. Gui Ying bowed, and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Ling Xiao and Ziyen descended from the sky and headed towards the thatched courtyard in the secluded valley. The valley was surrounded by clouds and mist. It was extremely secluded. Before leaving, Ling Xiao had already prepared the script. Whether it was him or Ziyen, both of them would have their own scenes to perform. As for Hua Mingxi, she only needed to sit in the courtyard and be shocked. Then, she would tell the world what she had seen today. After that, everything would come to an end. Of course, this time, Ling Xiao didn't arrange for Zhang Juji to be the scapegoat for the Sky Demon. It wasn't out of kindness. It was because the Sky Demon was very important. This was the Daotian Academy. Once the Sky Demon's whereabouts were exposed, it would definitely attract the attention of some experts. It would more or less affect Ling Xiao's plan. Moreover, if Ling Xiao could coincidentally meet the Sky Demon every time he appeared, it would definitely attract suspicion. Therefore, although Zhang Juji revealed his demonic intent yesterday, it didn't cause any real commotion. The reason was that this was the Daotian Academy. All disasters would be borne by the Academy. Moreover, the Heavenly Saint Business Alliance was the peak of the Azure Continent. Zhang Juji and Hua Mingxi's relationship was still suspicious. Since Lord Ling Xiao was willing to take on this heavy responsibility and find out the truth, what was there to worry about? With young master's character and his hatred for demons, was there a need to worry that he would be bewitched by Hua Mingxi? Young Master Hua. Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky with a gentle smile on his face. At this moment, he could clearly see a trace of hesitation in Hua Mingxi's eyes. Obviously, this Hua family's young master had already contacted Zhang Juji. I heard that young Master Hua is proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Now, it seems that you have also studied the way of tea? Young Master is too kind. Hua Mingxi smiled shyly. She didn't expect Ling Xiao to praise her tea skills instead of asking about Zhang Juji. The tension in Hua Mingxi's heart dissipated imperceptibly. The fragrance of this tea has already assailed my nostrils before I even tasted it. It's a pity that I am just a layman. I only know how to drink wine and not how to taste tea. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. Sitting on the stone chair in front of Hua Mingxi, he picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. Young Master is always so humble. If you were a commoner, I'm afraid no one in the Azure world would be extraordinary. Hua Mingxi picked up the teapot and poured a cup for Ling Xiao before raising her head to look at Ziyan. However, at this moment, this young miss of the Thunder Dragon clan was actually standing behind Ling Xiao like a maid. She didn't even sit down. Young master, suddenly, Hua Mingxi's heart was in turmoil. Although she had been trying her best to please Ling Xiao, she only saw him as an assistant on the path to immortality. However, after seeing Lei Yan's attitude, she realized that with her status, she might have overstepped from the start. Or perhaps it was because Ling Xiao was too outstanding. She only saw young master as an outstanding monstrous genius of the current generation, but neglected that even if his talent was ordinary, he was still a true peak of the Azure world. The Taigu Ling people. Although this power hadn't appeared in the world for a long time, it was recognized by the entire Azure world as a supreme power that could rival the World Lord Palace. And Ling Xiao was the only young master of the Taigu Ling people in 100,000 years. His status meant that he was destined to be above all the sects in the Azure world from the moment he appeared. Young Master Hua? What's wrong? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. Hua Mingxi suddenly took a deep breath and bowed to him. No matter what, Mingxi will always remember young master's kindness. If young master needs anything in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Haha, Mingxi is treating me like an outsider. If there's anything, there is indeed something that I need Mingxi's help with. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He took out a piece of golden paper and handed it to Hua Mingxi. Mingxi, take a look and see if you can help me find the spiritual materials on this. Of course, in terms of price, I will definitely satisfy you. No problem. Young master, don't worry. Later, I will send someone back to the Merchant Union to collect the spiritual materials for young master. Hua Mingxi's expression was radiant. From the beginning to the end, she wasn't worried about being used by Ling Xiao. On the contrary, as long as this young master of the Ling people opened his mouth, it would prove that she, Hua Mingxi, was of value to him. This way, the two of them could maintain a stable relationship. The spiritual materials on this piece of paper were all spiritual items of heaven and earth. If it was someone else, Hua Mingxi naturally wouldn't dare to agree so easily. But Ling Xiao, if she returned to the Merchant Union and told the three clans that these spiritual materials were requested by the young master of the Ling people, she was afraid that she wouldn't even need to show her face. The three clan leaders would use their own abilities to collect the spiritual materials and personally deliver them to Ling Xiao. Thank you very much. Here is 100 million spiritual stones. Take it as your reward. Ling Xiao casually handed a cosmos bag to Hua Mingxi. Before the latter could refuse, he spoke again. Mingxi, don't decline this kind of thing. In the future, we will have many opportunities to work together. This. Alright. Then I will wait for the future that young master mentioned. Hua Mingxi smiled slyly. However, just as she spoke, she felt that it was a little inappropriate. Her beautiful face immediately turned red. Young master, I have already contacted Zhang Juji last night. It was he who took the initiative to meet me. He wanted to show me something to prove his innocence. Prove his innocence. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. That's good. I am also very curious. What secret is this Zhang Juji hiding? Also, who killed Lei Yun? My lord, Zhang Juji has appeared. He is rushing here. In the Soul Sea, Gui Ying's voice suddenly sounded. However, Ling Xiao's expression didn't change at all. Instead, he frowned and said hesitantly, however, since he wants to meet Mingxi, my presence here will inevitably lead to misunderstandings. And young master means, perhaps he really has some difficulties that he can't talk about. He can only tell you, Mingxi. However, if I leave, I am really worried about your safety. Why don't we do this? Ling Xiao stood up and glanced at the direction of the cottage. I have a divine talisman that can conceal one's aura and soul consciousness. I will hide in the house. If Mingxi has any problems, I will be able to respond at any time. If Zhang Juji really isn't Lei Yun's murderer, with Miss Lei Yun here, she can be a witness. What do you think, Mingxi? Young master! Hua Mingxi's beautiful eyes trembled slightly. Her eyes were as clear as water. Everyone said that Lord Ling Shao was unparalleled in the world. Now, it seemed that this unparalleled didn't refer to his innate talent and combat strength. It referred to all aspects: character, breadth of mind, talent and knowledge, innate talent and cultivation, and benevolence. Alright, young master, don't worry. If Zhang Juji is really an evil demon, I will not be restrained by worldly feelings. I will definitely kill him personally. I have never doubted Mingxi's character. Ling Zhao's eyes were gentle. He stood up and walked into the cottage with Lei Yun. The talisman in his hand flickered and turned into a divine radiance, covering their aura completely. After doing all this, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a sinister smile. Another voice transmission talisman appeared in his hand. He said indifferently, "You can do it now." Chapter 1188. Boom! An evil light suddenly filled the sky above the valley. Layers of demonic aura covered the sky as Tao patterns bloomed. It was indescribably eerie. Hua Mingxi looked up at the depths of the demonic aura and saw a black-robed figure with a demonic aura descending from the sky. Her eyes narrowed. "Little junior brother, are you afraid that others don't know that you are a demon? If it weren't for the fact that this place is deserted, do you believe that you would be killed as soon as you show your face?" However, just as Hua Mingxi was sighing softly with a helpless look in her eyes, the demonic will in the void suddenly turned into a cage and enveloped her. Even with Hua Mingxi's cultivation, she could not resist at all. She could only watch as the black-robed figure stretched out his hand and pressed toward her. Buzz! An ear-piercing buzzing sound suddenly resounded. Tens of thousands of demonic aura surged into the sky and turned into a divine seal out of thin air. It covered all directions and suppressed the surroundings. It actually wanted to destroy the entire valley in one breath. Hua Mingxi's expression changed drastically. She suddenly had many guesses in her heart. Now, other than Ling Shao, Lei Yan, and Zhang Juji were the only ones who knew that she was in the valley. Ling Shao and Lei Yan were in the valley at this moment. This palm print contained a wisp of heaven and earth's saint aura. It was obvious that it wanted to kill all of them together. But, if it was Zhang Juji, why did he want to kill her? Could it be that he wanted to hide his identity and was worried that she would expose his whereabouts? Before Hua Mingxi could figure out the reason, the sky-covering palm print had already come from the sky and instantly shattered the sky. The heavenly Tao was obliterated and the spiritual aura was extinguished. With Hua Mingxi's strength, how could she withstand Sure Potion's full-strength attack? Therefore, before the divine seal landed, blood had already trickled down from the corner of Hua Mingxi's mouth. She raised her jade-like hand gently and a white jade glass plate immediately floated in the air and went up to block the demonic seal. Endless divine aura bloomed. On the jade plate, there were tens of thousands of rays of light, and the divine armament awakened. At first glance, one could tell that it was a rare treasure. Boom! But even then, at the instant these two attacks collided, space suddenly became motionless, and then waves of energy surged through an area of 5,000 kilometers. On the other hand, the immortal radiance on the jade disk was practically instantly obliterated. After that, numerous cracks appeared on the jade plate, and the entire jade plate shattered. Poochie! Hua Mingxi's pretty face turned pale. Her figure immediately flew out. She watched as the demonic seal fell, wanting to kill her on the spot. In an instant, Hua Mingxi only felt a bone-chilling coldness. There was an indescribable sense of illusory despair. How could this be? She still had a great path ahead of her, so why was she suddenly going to fall here? Yes, Lord Ling Shao, the young master, was still here. He would definitely be able to help her get through this calamity. At this moment, the ambitions in his heart and the vision of the immortal path had become unimportant. As long as she could live, Huamingxi was willing to pay any price. However, even young master wouldn't be able to withstand the attack of a saint-stage evil devil. Evil demon, you deserve to die. Buzz. Just as Huamingxi's heart was filled with despair, layers of ripples suddenly appeared in the space behind her. Immediately after, she felt a warm and strong arm gently pull her into an embrace. Suddenly, all the coldness in the world dissipated. Everything was silent and the world was silent. Only the face in front of her was firm and gentle like the sun, expelling all the evil in the world. In Ling Zhao's hand, the 3,000 blossoms bloomed with piercingly cold light. The moment Ling Zhao's hand chopped down, time in the entire valley froze. There was a dazzling sea of light surging with unparalleled mystery, and it faced the demonic seal. The rules of the great Tao intertwined, and endless runes evolved into a sea. The heavenly Tao manifested itself. There was a 7-colored mist rising. The sun was high in the sky, and the sea of light was formed. Huamingxi was shocked. Even if, in her heart, Ling Xiao was always a tall mountain that she needed to look up to. However, she had never been like this before. She was shocked. What kind of talent was this? It was impossible to describe with words. Black robes with hair tied up, and an unparalleled celestial appearance. The 3-foot-long sword in his hand was unrivaled in the world. More importantly, his embrace was so warm, broad, and vigorous. In this arm, Huamingxi felt unparalleled peace of mind. Then, she was shocked to see that where the sword passed, endless strange phenomena appeared. Ancient trees, sacred mountains, and the heavenly palace. Layer after layer, it cut through time, and all Daos were defeated. Boom! The sky evil devils will began to dissipate, revealing a black-clothed figure with frightened eyes. At this moment, a gentle and clear voice suddenly sounded in Huamingxi's ears. Mingxi, are you all right? I'm fine. Huamingxi slowly raised her head and looked at the pair of eyes that were as bright as the sea of stars. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, and her red lips were tightly pursed. Instantly, her eyes became wet. Beep, the destined woman is grateful to the devil. Congratulations to the host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Evil devil, your heart is indeed evil. Ling Xiao said indifferently and looked coldly at the devil above his head. In the next moment, he gently waved his hand and placed Huamingxi on the ground. His figure turned into a graceful swan and rushed toward Shi Patian angrily. Humph! Master was right. Huamingxi, you're actually colluding with outsiders and plotting against us. Shi Patian snorted coldly and did not continue to tangle with her. He turned around and fled toward the sky. Ling Zhao's figure chased after him, disappearing into the distance in an instant. Master, be careful, Huamingxi was stunned. She heard what Shi Patian said just now. Master? Colluding with outsiders? Could it be that this devil is really Zhang Juji's subordinate and came here to verify Huamingxi's innocence? However, she did not know how to explain it. Master was hiding in the dark to give Zhang Juji a chance to prove his innocence. Now, it seemed that there was no need to prove it. This guy. He really colluded with the evil devil. Boom. In the distant sky, spiritual power was vast and mighty. 2 figures were fighting fiercely in the void and gradually disappeared. Lei Yan's figure slowly walked over and stood beside Huamingxi. Her eyes were solemn. In the end, she sighed softly, young master's guess is right. Zhang Juji asked you to appear. I'm afraid he has the intention to kill you to silence you. What? At this moment, Huamingxi was already in a daze and her heart was in turmoil. The shock that Ling Xiao gave her just now was simply too strong and too great. It was like a sharp sword that pierced through her body and made her unable to breathe. At the same time, she was inexplicably satisfied. Lei Yun's death is definitely related to Zhang Juji. However, Qing Mu Supreme is the sage of the demon race. He would never collude with the devil. Now in the entire Qing Tsang, only a few of you know where Qing Mu Supreme is living in seclusion. Once you expose his evil deeds, Qing Mu Supreme will definitely take action to clean up the sect. Zhang Juji most likely wants to kill you because of this. Lei Yan shook her head and sighed. She looked weary. As long as you're dead, he can temporarily get rid of the danger and plan something else. This, to be honest, if Master was not here, Huamingxi would definitely not be able to escape from the devil's hands today. This kindness was more real and powerful than any words. She was very angry. Zhang Juji, to think that I wanted to give you a chance to prove your innocence. The only thing that made Huamingxi feel strange was this little junior brother. How could a great devil of the sage realm recognize him as his master? Chapter 1189. 1. 300 miles to the west of the Spirit Creek Valley. Ling Xiao stood in the air and turned his head to the east. He casually swung the silver sword in his hand, creating a huge ripple. Just now, Gui Ying had sent a message saying that Zhang Juji was sneaking around in the forest and was heading towards the Spirit Creek Valley. The reason why he left Ziyan behind was to prevent this Tianming from having any chance to speak. I won't give you time to explain. You will naturally have to take the blame. As for whether Zhang Juji would have a chance to meet Huamingxi alone after this, Ling Xiao guessed that probably not. Gui Ying was hiding in the dark. This leak was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. If he was tactful and listened to the orders, he might be able to survive for a few more days. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would harvest him today and complete his plan. Of course, even if Huamingxi was careful and wasn't bewitched, it didn't matter. At most, he would kill them both and show them the cruelty of the evil demon. He could plan for the rest later. Master, Zhang Juji has entered the valley. Gui Ying's voice came from his soul sea. Ling Xiao waved his hand and put Shirpatian into his realm. Then, he turned and walked towards the valley. Gui Ying, you don't have to do anything later. However, carefully check the demonic intent on Zhang Juji. I keep feeling that the aura is somewhat familiar. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. Previously, in Dao Heaven City, in order to prevent this leak from being intercepted, he didn't use his full strength. Therefore, he only felt that the demonic intent on Zhang Juji was pure. It didn't seem to be a cultivation technique. In fact, that sinister and cold fluctuation was quite similar to the nether qi on Chen Qingshan's body. However, it was more sinister. Yes. When Ling Xiao arrived at the valley and landed in the forest, he didn't rush to show himself. In the past, when he planned to save the beauty, he would usually suffer some injuries. Only then would it appear realistic and touching. However, just now, he directly revealed his strength and fought against a Saint Realm expert to intimidate Huamingxi. This girl wasn't an ordinary genius of a sect. Her thoughts and foresight were top-notch among her peers. In other words, such a girl was rational and independent. She would rarely be truly moved. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to occupy such a position in a region. To deal with Huamingxi, the simpler and more violent, the more effective it would be. Lasting power was the best way to conquer her. It was obvious that Ling Xiao's display of sword principle had deeply shocked the young master of the Hua family. Next, Ling Xiao didn't even need to deliberately need her. She should take the initiative to offer herself to him in order to befriend him. Do you see that? Only by prescribing the right medicine can we eliminate the enemy. The plot was still the same. It was nothing more than the hero saving the damsel in distress, but the key to the success of the plot was to subtly control the hearts of people. 9 extremities. Do you really want to take this risk? Didn't you see the energy waves that came from the valley just now? At the same time, on the other side of the valley, Zhang Juji slowly walked out of the ancient forest. At this moment, his expression was also somewhat solemn. Especially the sudden burst of spiritual splendor demonic might just now, it made him feel inexplicably uneasy. Could it be that the enemy who had been hiding in the dark had attacked second senior sister? It's just the sage realm. I think Senior Een you will be able to help me pass through safely if there's any danger. Zhang Juji's eyes were gloomy as he held the ancient sword in his hand. He originally wanted to find out the culprit who had been hiding behind the scenes. Now that Hua Mingxi had an accident, it was the best opportunity. How could his Taoist heart be at ease if he turned around and ran away now? Moreover, second senior sister was still in the valley and her life was unknown. He couldn't be ungrateful and drag out an ignoble existence. Alas, 9 extremities, you don't understand at all. This is a battle between the heavens and the earth. The more karma it involves, the more it will only wear away one's own luck. Inu sighed softly. At this moment, she could forcibly use the demonic will to take Zhang Juji away from here. However, as Zhang Juji said just now, the energy waves were only at the sage realm. With her strength, she could kill it with a wave of her hand. Moreover, she was relying on Zhang Juji to carry her in the sword. If she accidentally broke his Taoist heart, how could he step into the 9 heavens again in the future? Okay, but you'd better be careful. Your second senior sister is not simple. In the end, Inu didn't stop him. Instead, she quietly spread out her soul consciousness. After confirming that there were no experts hiding in the surroundings, she said indifferently, "Let's go. Your second senior sister is now in the valley." Okay. Zhang Juji nodded indifferently. He stepped out and his figure suddenly fell from the sky and went straight into the valley. It wasn't until the two of them disappeared that a ripple appeared in the void. The ghostly figure appeared in the sky with a rare trace of emotion in his eyes. It was a kind of vicissitudes of life, astonishment, and a hint of suspicion. Was it an illusion? Boom! Suddenly, a multicolored light bloomed in the Spirit Creek Valley. A young man's figure stepped on an auspicious cloud and descended from the sky. At this moment, Zhang Juji's face was filled with a trace of arrogance. He looked at Hua Mingxi with a kind of confidence and determination. "Senior sister, I'm here. Don't worry, I won't allow anyone to hurt you with me here." However, just as he was in high spirits and his thoughts were running wild, trying to act cool in this dangerous situation, he saw that the purple-clothed woman beside Hua Mingxi suddenly had a dark expression on her face. She actually directly struck out with her palm and furiously smashed it towards him. "Zhang Juji, you actually dare to show yourself!" Boom! A majestic aura shot up, as if it was going to shatter the blue sky. A wisp of demonic light appeared in the sky and turned into the divine shadow of a lightning dragon, enveloping Zhang Juji. Furthermore, before the light on the young man's face dissipated, it completely froze. He originally thought that the purple-clothed woman was Hua Mingxi's servant. Why did she suddenly want to kill him? At this moment, Zhang Juji could feel that the attack was mixed with a trace of a saint stage aura. It was filled with killing intent and showed no intention of holding back. Before coming, Ling Xiao had told Ziyan that as soon as Zhang Juji appeared, she should immediately attack and not give him a chance to speak. Based on Ziyan's luck, it was impossible for her to kill Zhang Juji. Even though Ziyan's divine soul had entered the saint stage and her cultivation was about to step into the saint stage, her luck was not enough. Damn it! Who is this crazy woman? Zhang Juji shouted angrily, lightning faintly circulating around his body. Originally, with his good fortune saint body, it would be very difficult for him to resist this attack that was close to the saint stage. But in the past few days, he had completely merged with the dark tribulation devil thunder, and his physical body was comparable to a saint stage expert. Facing Ziyan's all-out attack, he did not dare to be careless. It was best not to expose Yin Moon. After all, it was his true life-saving trump card. Boom! The lightning dragon phantom flew through the sky, crushing the blue sky and smashing Zhang Juji's body. The entire valley was shattered. Endless smoke rose up, covering the sky and the sun. It was a shocking scene. At this moment, even Hua Mingxi lightly covered her vermilion mouth as she looked at the woman beside her in surprise. She did not expect that the young miss of the Thunder Dragon tribe would have such terrifying combat strength. She did not know why Zhang Juji appeared. But looking at his appearance just now, it seemed that he did not want to attack. Just as Hua Mingxi was pondering, she suddenly felt a terrifying fluctuation that made one's scalp tingle, slowly spreading out from the depths of the smoke. This aura. Chapter 1190. This fluctuation, it's the hidden tribulation. Hua Mingxi's eyes narrowed. She seemed to have thought of something, and her face suddenly turned pale. At this moment, she could feel the terrifying lightning intent surging in the space. She was very familiar with this aura. Hidden tribulation. Back then, Hua Mingxi and Lei Yun had cultivated together in the Heaven and Earth Imperial Court for dozens of years. They often sparred with each other, so they knew each other's trump cards very well. Poor Zhang Juji. Since he came up the mountain, his 5 senior sisters had already come out to experience the world. Even when Lei Yun fought with Gu Chaoxiai, she did not use this trump card at first. Therefore, Zhang Juji did not know that the great fortune in his eyes was actually a scapegoat that Ling Xiao had personally prepared for him. The purpose was naturally to prove his cruel act of killing Lei Yun. So it was true. Hua Mingxi's delicate body trembled slightly, and the light in her eyes dimmed. Although she had more or less guessed that Lei Yun's death was definitely related to Zhang Juji. But now, seeing her 5th junior sister's divine lightning being merged into Zhang Juji's body, this feeling was like watching him eat her 5th junior sister bite by bite. Extremely cruel. Suddenly, Hua Mingxi seemed to understand why Lord Ling Xiao hated evil spirits so much. They deserved to die. Humph. 2nd senior sister, don't you think you should give me an explanation? Until a cold shout suddenly came from afar, the confusion in Hua Mingxi's eyes dissipated, and a trace of resentment and ridicule appeared. Give you an explanation? Are you worthy? Not good. Miss Hua, I'm afraid that young master has been lured away by this evil spirit. He deliberately lured young master away so that he can take the opportunity to attack you. You go first, I'll stop him for a moment. Ziyan took a step forward and blocked in front of Hua Mingxi. Immediately, the latter's beautiful face froze, and the corner of her mouth was full of a bitter smile. Did you see that? This is called birds of a feather flock together. Those who follow young master, whether they are demons or humans, all have such righteousness in their hearts. Young master, you are a saint in the human world. Wherever you go, you are a believer. Miss Lei Yin, don't hesitate anymore. Young master asked you to live. Are you going to betray his good intentions? Ziyan shouted coldly. She took a step forward and charged at Zhang Juji. Right at this moment, her expression suddenly froze, and her eyes clearly flickered with a touch of dense shock. Above the valley, the sun and the moon shone together, forming a barrier that imprisoned the world. Before Hua Mingxi could escape, she was crushed by a vast divine might from the sky and fell into the valley. Without any misgivings, Zhang Juji finally revealed the strength of a heaven's mandate. To put it bluntly, even if Xian was at the 9th rank of the exalted realm, she would still be able to kill these 2 women in a battle of life and death. After all, with 20,000 providence, even if he couldn't win, he could still break through on the spot. None of you can leave today. As the dust settled, a figure shrouded in lightning could be seen slowly walking over from afar. At this moment, Zhang Juji's gaze was extremely cold. If he was just an ordinary exalted stage expert, then he would have been killed by Ziyan just now. Hua Mingxi, to think that I was worried that you would be harmed by the evil demon and risked exposing my identity to save you. I didn't expect that you would ally with outsiders to kill me. Why? Zhang Juji raised his head and looked at Hua Mingxi. His tone was extremely calm. Why? You're asking me why? Zhang Juji, are you still you? Hua Mingxi's expression was cold. To be able to do such a disgraceful thing, it was obvious that the current Zhang Juji was no longer the junior brother who had been in seclusion for 200 years. Or rather, his Dao heart had long been tainted with demonic intent. Otherwise, why would he be so cruel as to kill his senior sister and dig out her pill see divine lightning to fuse with his own body? You? What do you mean? Zhang Juji's eyes trembled, and there was obvious panic on his face. Originally, he had wanted to tell Hua Mingxi about the secret of the Nine Sons Buddha sword. However, he didn't expect that he would be killed by Ziyan the moment he appeared. He was already furious. However, listening to Hua Mingxi's words, she seemed to know something? What's the point of talking nonsense with him? Young Master Hua, if you can't bear to do it, then leave it to me. Before Hua Mingxi could continue speaking, Ziyan had already taken a step forward. Instantly, purple light swam around her body, revealing an ancient desolate aura. 9 bolts of lightning manifested holy will, easily piercing through the sky and pressing down on Zhang Juji's head. The void trembled as layers of cracks appeared. Beside her, Hua Mingxi clenched her teeth. At this moment, she could understand Ziyan's feelings. After all, there was no need to suppress her killing intent when she saw her sister's companion divine lightning being fused with another person. Sigh. Zhang Juji, since you are willing to side with demons, today I will clean up the sect on behalf of Master. Hua Mingxi stretched out her hand, and a 5-colored lotus immediately floated in the sky, emitting a dazzling divine light. The immortal aura overlapped, and the Tao will dissolved the miasma. Endless auspicious light gushed out like the primordial Tao, covering the sky and the sun. Then, under Hua Mingxi's hand seal, the lotus turned into a stream of light, dragging a long chain behind it as it fell from the sky, sealing off Zhang Juji's escape route. Boom! Between heaven and earth, the divine power of lightning surged, as if billions of stars had exploded at the same time. The entire valley collapsed, burying the entire Spirit Creek ancient forest. Side with demons? How did you know? At this moment, Zhang Juji's face flashed with a hint of surprise. He had never mentioned Yin to anyone, but how did second senior sister know about this? That's right. The Rakshasa race was the most evil race in the world. The appearance of this race was the beginning of the end of the world. Anyone who associates themselves with this clan will be viewed as a heretic. But, second senior sister, you should at least listen to my explanation. Wait. Suddenly, Zhang Juji seemed to have thought of a possibility. Just as Yin said, second senior sister's thoughts were deep, and she prioritized benefits. Yesterday, he had exposed his demonic intent in the Sky Saint Business Alliance, and the geniuses of the Azure Sky sect had witnessed it. Now that Hua Mingxi was anxious to kill him, perhaps it was because she wanted to put righteousness before family and stay out of the matter? In this way, she would not have to bear the crime of colluding with demons. Yes, that must be it. Since you want to kill me, don't blame me for not being courteous. Hua Mingxi, our friendship ends today. Zhang Juji took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly flashed with extreme coldness. In his hand, the 9 suns stupa shot out cold light. Vaguely, it seemed like a demonic sun was slowly rising from the tip of the sword. The brilliant heavenly power descended, transforming into a sword that was hundreds of meters long, breaking the blue sky and slashing down with a loud bang. Crack! In one breath, the void became as deep as an abyss. A supreme aura was restored along the path of the sword light. Chapter 1191. Watch out! Ziyan shouted coldly, but there was a hint of a smile in her eyes. In the end, the two of them still killed each other according to the young master's plan. The sword radiance that filled the sky suddenly fell like the Milky Way, splitting heaven and earth. Even though Hua Mingxi had activated the power of her saint artifact, she was still unable to stop the sword intent. The lotus was at its peak, but it was instantly destroyed by the sword intent, and Hua Mingxi's figure was sent flying in a sorry state. Seeing this, Ziyan's expression turned cold. She took the initiative to withdraw the power of her spirit to avoid the sword intent. At this moment, her eyes were also flickering with a hint of surprise. Especially since the young man's cultivation was clearly only at the 5th level of the exalted realm. However, the immortal aura contained within the sword intent was something that even she could not resist. As expected of the prey targeted by the young master, there was always something different about her. Hua Mingxi, speak. What exactly do you know? Zhang Juji stood in the sky, looking down at the two women with an indifferent expression. In his hand, the 9 suns stupa bloomed with dazzling divine radiance like a sun, making the young man's figure seem even more majestic. You've indeed appeared. However, before Hua Mingxi could speak, a deep and cold voice suddenly sounded from the sky. Hearing this voice, no matter if it was Ziyan or Hua Mingxi, a smile appeared on their faces. Young master. Ling Xiao? Zhang Juji slowly raised his head and looked at the black-clothed figure above him with a frown. For some unknown reason, he had a feeling that since the first time he met Ling Xiao, his path to immortality had begun to fall. Evil demon, you should die. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao did not give Zhang Juji any chance to speak. The moment he stepped forward, the ancient sword in his hand suddenly slashed down. Buzz! A sword cry suddenly sounded in the sky. A cool breeze spread for 30,000 miles, sweeping away the idle clouds and shattering the deep space. Zhang Juji's expression changed drastically. A great sun rose above the 9 suns stupa sword, slaying gods and immortals. However, in front of Ling Xiao, no matter how heaven-defying this chosen one was, it was still difficult for him to withstand the power of this sword. At the instant the two sword forces collided, Zhang Juji's face suddenly turned pale, and his entire body was actually sent flying while blood violently sprayed from his mouth. At this moment, a bone-revealing sword wound could be seen on his chest. It was obvious that he had suffered quite a serious injury from Ling Xiao's sword. How is this possible? Zhang Juji lowered his head and looked at the ghastly wounds on his body. His expression darkened even more. Master Ling Xiao had managed to break through his defense with a casual strike of his divine body and the divine thunder of heaven and earth. That's ridiculous. At the side, Hua Mingxi's jade-like hand once again tightly covered her red lips, her eyes filled with shock. Just now, Zhang Juji had fought her and Lei Yan alone and had not fallen into a disadvantageous position. However, at this moment, he had been severely injured by Lord Ling Xiao's sword. Unmatched immortal beauty, the might of an emperor was already apparent. This was probably the case. Young master, you are invincible. Aren't you going to surrender? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, his eyes filled with murderous intent. With his strength, there would not be much of a surprise if he wanted to kill Zhang Juji at this moment. However, what he wanted now was not to cut off this leak, but to make Hua Mingxi believe that Zhang Juji was a demon, an evil demon. In this way, the Azure world would definitely be lively for a while. However, he did not expect that Zhang Juji would actually not use his true trump card even when he was about to die. Indeed, these children of destiny were all the same. It was as if he could not remember what his strongest move was until he was about to die. In that case, Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly shone with a cold light. Suddenly, there was a myriad of Tao intent circulating around his body and gathering in his sword. Divine mountains, great rivers, and the deep starry sky appeared in the sword force. A ray of clear light, like the light of nirvana in the depths of the primordial world, annihilated the ancient era and experienced 9 reincarnations. Rays of mystical brilliance appeared, and the majestic aura was vast and vast, covering everything. Zhang Juji's heart trembled. He only felt a chill all over his body, as if he was about to die. Good, good, good. Since you keep saying that I am a demon, today I will transform into a demon and kill all of you hypocrites of the righteous Tao. Zhang Juji was so angry that he laughed, and his eyes were sinister. With his strength, it was obviously difficult for him to fight Ling Xiao head-on. Moreover, it seemed that this young master of the Ling people did not intend to let him go. In that case, there was nothing to worry about. Using my body to seek the demon, quietly watching the sea of mulberry butterflies. Using my heart to seek the Tao, I will decide the eternal reincarnation. Buzz! Suddenly, there was a black fog lingering in the valley, and the void hummed. There seemed to be demonic intent circulating around Zhang Juji, turning into a dark fog that blocked everyone's vision. However, at this time, he did not expose Yin Yu's aura. After all, this Rakshasa could only unleash her full strength in the Buddha domain. Now that they had shed all pretense of cordiality, he might as well go all the way. Otherwise, once these people in front of him went out and shouted, there would be no place for him in the azure sky world. Seeing this scene, Ling Xiao nodded slightly. This aura is undoubtedly that of an evil demon. Boom! Thousands of miles of dark clouds covered the sky, and large areas of the void collapsed. In a radius of 100 miles, black clouds covered the sun, as if it was the end of the world. As for Ling Xiao's sword aura, it actually disappeared without a trace in a strange manner. This is, Hua Mingxi and Zi Yan's faces darkened, and a hint of fear flashed in their eyes. At this time, they could feel that the aura contained in the demonic intent was extremely sinister and strange. It was like a black hole that completely devoured all the spiritual energy that entered it. Buzz! Zhang Juji's expression was gloomy. He looked up at Ling Xiao, and in the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. In his hand, the 9 suns stupa bloomed with a sinister light, and an invisible force quietly enveloped Ling Xiao's figure. Boom! A terrifying force descended without any warning. Even with Ling Xiao's strength, he was caught off guard and his body sank slightly. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Zhang Juji, who had already arrived in front of him, was suddenly stunned on the spot. His mouth was slightly open and his eyes were dull. It shouldn't be. This Buddha's domain was currently his strongest trump card besides Yin Yu. Not to mention a young man in the venerable realm, even a person in the saint realm would be crushed by that swamp-like force if they rashly fell into it. Ling Xiao was very strong, but how could he resist the power of his domain so easily? Just tremble? Beep, the son of destiny's Tao heart trembled. Congratulations to the host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Impossible! I don't believe it. At this moment, a strong sense of unwillingness and fear finally appeared in Zhang Juji's heart. Only now did he realize that compared to Ling Xiao, the young master of the Ling people, he seemed to be a bit of trash? Were all the monstrous geniuses in the azure sky world so powerful? He hadn't even met the 13 taboos, and he was already trampled by an ancient clan's young master? Buzz! In the stupa domain, thousands of ghosts suddenly howled. Even though Hua Mingxi and Zi Yan hadn't entered this domain, they still felt a chill rising from the soles of their feet. Apart from a true demon, who else could have such a sinister and terrifying aura? Zhang Juji, you hypocritical and cunning demon. Chapter 1192. Demonic will surged in the void. Zhang Juji and Ling Xiao looked at each other from a distance, their eyes surging with a fierce fighting spirit. Especially the former, the fear on his face had gradually calmed down. No matter how Ling Xiao blocked the might of his Buddha domain, in this place, He was the one and only ruler. At the very least, it would be difficult for any spiritual pressure attacks to threaten him. Ling Xiao, I'll say it again, I'm not a demon, Before Zhang Juji could finish his sentence, the silver-white ancient sword in the young man's hand lit up again. But, before Ling Xiao could slash out with his palm, the unparalleled sword will was suddenly annihilated. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and looked up at the land 10 miles above him. He saw streams of evil qi flowing out, evolving into an ancient world, revealing an endless demonic nature. Although this demonic will could not be compared to the sky demon aura on his body, it was not comparable to the overlapping shadow or reckless demon aura. It was quite similar to Xiong Huan and the others. Ling Xiao, you call yourself the current human emperor, the Light of Azure. How dare you accuse others of being a demon without knowing what's right and wrong? Fine, others may be afraid of you, but I'm not. Zhang Juji took a deep breath and clenched his fist. Dark lightning meandered around his body, as if an ancient battle armor had been revived. Even if Ling Xiao's cultivation was heaven-defying and invincible among his peers, in his domain, he was just a toothless ferocious beast that could not bite anyone to death. Evil demons should be killed by the world. Ling Xiao snorted and took the initiative to put away the ancient sword, dispersing the spirit radiance on his body. At this time, he also realized that the strange thing about this domain was the heavy pressure that was like a swamp. Whether it was spiritual power or soul power, it would be eroded and devoured by the evil qi. Since that was the case, he could only rely on pure physical strength to crush this small extreme. Compared to his cultivation base, Ling Xiao's most terrifying aspect was his fleshly body. The sky demon bone, the 3,000 sword bones, and the unforgiven demonic armor were enough to make Ling Xiao comparable to a sovereign. You're courting death. Seeing the cold arrogance on Ling Xiao's face, the last trace of hesitation in Zhang Juji's heart instantly disappeared. Originally, he had only wanted to use his absolute strength to force the young master of the Ling people to retreat. In this way, he would have the opportunity to communicate with him on an equal footing. But now it seemed that he didn't like this method. Since that was the case, they could only beat him until he compromised. Boom! As he thought about it, Zhang Juji stepped forward. Lightning crackled around him, making him look like an ancient god of thunder, exuding an undefeatable aura. There's no mistake, it's Lei Yun's secluded tribulation divine lightning. In the valley, Lei Yan's expression was one of grief and indignation. She turned to look at Hua Mingxi. Young Master Hua, as Lei Yun's second senior sister, you should be very familiar with this aura. That's right, it's fifth junior sister's divine lightning. Hua Mingxi let out a sigh. As soon as Zhang Juji executed the lightning, she knew that her junior brother was planning to kill her. But she still couldn't figure out why. Previously, Hua Mingxi thought that Zhang Juji had been possessed by someone, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. We can't let this matter go so easily. The Heavenly Wolf Clan and Qing Mu Sovereign must pay the price. Ziyan snorted coldly and pretended to be angry. She knew that Ling Xiao was quite interested in Hua Mingxi and Ziyan's master. But Qing Mu Sovereign lived in seclusion and sealed himself off from the world. He didn't see anyone. Now that Zhang Juji had turned into a devil and killed his senior sister, this matter was more or less related to his master. At that time, even if he didn't want to come out, it wouldn't be up to him. Sigh. Miss Lei Yan, I think young master will definitely find out the reason for this matter. Perhaps, bang. As the two were talking, Zhang Juji thrust out his palm from the void. Tens of thousands of feet of lightning fell down like a sea of stars, shattering the vault of heaven. And in the depths of that sea of stars, a purple lightning dragon shot out. Its brilliance shocked the world, and it contained a destructive aura. The Nether Tribulation Divine Thunder was originally the greatest good fortune in the world. Now that it had been fused with Zhang Juji's good fortune saint body, its might was a bit overbearing, as if it could compete with the heavens. At this time, Zhang Juji was confident that no matter how terrifying Ling Zhao's mortal body was, he would still collapse under this thunderous attack. But, inexplicably, as he saw the purple lightning dragon break through the void, he felt that it was a bit familiar? Was it because he missed fifth senior sister so much that he went crazy? Why did everything seem to have her shadow? Bang! The thunder dragon tore through the sky and tumbled down. In an instant, the world lit up, as if 3,000 stars were falling at the same time. 90,000 miles in the void, the cracks were deep and terrifying, causing one's scalp to tingle with a chill. Even a wisp of destructive aura emitted from it could easily shatter the surrounding mountains into nothingness and burn the ancient forest to ashes. Young master! Hua Mingxi's eyes trembled and she instinctively took a step forward. However, beside her, Ziyan's pretty face was calm and she did not move at all. For a moment, Hua Mingxi hesitated. At this time, she could see a trace of determination in Ziyan's eyes. It was as if she was not worried that young master would be injured by this world-destroying lightning at all. Miss Lei Yan, don't you plan to help young master? Help? Ziyan was stunned. Then, she smiled and shook her head. If there is a day when someone of the same generation can hurt him, it proves that the immortal race has descended. What? Hua Mingxi's pretty face trembled, and her mouth opened slightly. But before she could cry out in alarm, she suddenly heard a terrified roar from the void in the distance. Impossible! At this time, in the Buddha domain, Zhang Juji's face was pale and filled with despair, as if he had seen a ghost. 10 zhang in front of him, the lightning that filled the sky had yet to disperse. However, a black-clothed figure had already torn through the heavy lightning curtain and slowly walked towards him. The black-clothed figure floated in the air like an immortal. Black lightning could be faintly seen circulating around his body. However, his aura was not affected in the slightest. Even his black clothes were not stained by the slightest bit of dust. The dark golden patterns on his clothes were shining and mysterious. If this is your trump card, then, you can go and die. The corner of Ling Zhao's mouth raised into a sinister smile. He suddenly clenched his fist and punched out. The oppressive wind shattered the endless lightning curtain. The surrounding 100 li of space turned into dust. The bright sun was dim, and the green mountains were hidden. The entire world was silent. Only the black-clothed figure had a gentle smile on his face. His eyes were shining brightly as he instantly arrived in front of Zhang Juji. How is this possible? His body, how? Zhang Juji's face was blank as if he had fallen into a nightmare. At this time, he was suddenly confused. What was the meaning of this immortal path? No! I cannot die. In you! Chapter 1193. Boom! In the forest, a wisp of demonic will quietly spread out. The originally clear sky suddenly turned dark and black fog lingered. Vaguely, a blood moon was revealed from the darkness. It was demonic and treacherous. Under the blood moon, a petite figure in a black robe with fair skin slowly appeared. Her long hair fluttered in the wind like a waterfall. Her delicate face, which was almost transparent, was filled with the vicissitudes of life. It was as if she was born in the darkness and walked in the light only to kill. In the face of Ling Zhao's fist shadows, the girl only lightly extended her palm. The originally calm Buddha domain suddenly surged with boundless evil light. Thousands of ghosts and souls wailed in pain under her palm. It was heart-wrenching. The moment Ling Zhao's fist shadows touched the girl's hand, the countless strange phenomena suddenly froze. Then, in front of Zhang Juji's terrified eyes, they suddenly shattered. Yin Yu's figure retreated a few steps, and Ling Zhao's figure was also sent flying. There was no trace of fear on his face. Instead, a faint smile appeared on his face. Has it finally appeared? When he saw Zhang Juji use his demonic will for the first time, he vaguely felt that there was another wisp of soul fluctuation in Zhang Juji's body. It was obvious that there was a powerful soul hidden behind this Tianming. As expected, not only was it powerful, but it was also a true demon. In the Spirit Creek Valley, a wisp of light quietly disappeared. The strange phenomena that were originally hidden in the valley suddenly turned into demonic light and shot into the sky. The entire Dao Sky City suddenly fell into silence. Countless experts and geniuses suddenly raised their heads and looked in the direction of the valley. In the next moment, streaks of light flashed in the sky and rushed over. That's right. From the moment Zhang Juji appeared, Ling Xiao ordered Ghost Shadow to secretly seal off the entire valley. His purpose was to temporarily hide everything in the valley and give Zhang Juji some time to perform. As long as he became a true demon, Ling Xiao would lead the world to witness his demon-slaying ceremony. Senior Yin Yu, let's end this quickly. Zhang Juji's eyes were filled with fear. He turned his head and looked in the direction of Dao Sky City. Many flowing light figures were walking through the air. Clearly, they had also sensed the unusual phenomenon in this place. Just now, he was also puzzled as to why such a huge commotion had not attracted too much attention. But on second thought, he figured out the reason. Hua Mingxi must have done something in secret, afraid that others would find out that she was involved with him, the evil spirit. In this way, Zhang Juji could be considered to have put down the last trace of worry in his heart and utilized the trump card in his hand with all his might. But why did the barrier disappear the moment he exposed the Yin Moon? Hua Mingxi, you're so cruel. The way I see it, you don't want me to die at all. You want my reputation to be ruined and my entire clan to be slaughtered. Inexplicably, Zhang Juji thought of his old father lying on the bed and his mother being eaten by demonic beasts, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness and anger. It was a bad start. The human heart was complicated. He had never imagined that he would one day be schemed against by his own senior sister. All right. Yin Yu gently nodded and looked at Ling Xiao in surprise. Although now, her cultivation was no longer comparable to when she was at her peak. But looking at this young man's age, he was at most in his early 20s, and in this Buddha domain, he actually used his physical strength to take her palm head-on? Ridiculous! Could it be that this young man was the reincarnation of an almighty? Or could it be that he was carrying a heavenly treasure on him? Humph, a human youth dares to be arrogant in front of this sovereign. Yin Yu coldly snorted, and the evil aura around her body curled into a mist, gradually drowning her figure. At the same time, a bone-chilling and terrifying aura slowly rose, intimidating people. Above the void, a blood moon stretched out, illuminating the blue sea. But, just as Ling Xiao's eyes were cold and he was about to use the boundary-breaking talisman to leave this world, he saw that the evil girl's face was clearly flashing with a trace of intense shock and fear. Then, she slowly raised her head and looked at the sky. The expression in her eyes made even Ling Xiao feel a little surprised. It was a kind of regret after experiencing the vicissitudes of thousands of years, and also a kind of disbelief accumulated from millions of years of yearning. Heaven and earth were silent and time was stagnant. Even the blood moon above the girl's head seemed to be hidden in the mist, and it was no longer emitting an evil aura, but a gentle gaze. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He felt that the way this girl looked at him was a little that. "Who exactly are you?" Buzz. Suddenly, countless figures with terrifying auras descended from the sky. They were densely packed and covered the sky and the sun. At this time, everyone was looking at the two people who were facing each other in surprise. In the next moment, a shocking uproar suddenly erupted. It's Lord Ling Xiao. That demonic figure is the young man from the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union yesterday. This guy is indeed colluding with the evil demon. Young master has fulfilled his promise. He really found the demon's trace. Senior, you. What the hell? Zhang Jiuji's face was full of panic, especially when he noticed the eyes of the surrounding people looking at him. His heart suddenly trembled. "Who am I?" Yin smiled gently, and a soul light suddenly appeared in her eyes. The sky demon's radiance filled the sky, and it transformed into layers of evil images. A ray of extremely bright soul light leisurely appeared, and like a sharp sword, it stabbed towards Ling Zhao's soul sea. Just as the latter frowned slightly, and was about to use the absolute beginning ancestral talisman, two divine soul voices suddenly sounded in his ears. "Master! Don't resist, it's Yin Yu's soul imprint. Master, this person is the general of our Sky Demon Palace. Submit to him." "Demon General?" Ling Zhao's eyes turned cold, and the corner of his mouth finally raised into a smile. It was obvious that Yin Yu had been recognized by the ghost shadow when she appeared just now. At this time, she took the initiative to offer her divine soul imprint, just to prove her loyalty. With the absolute beginning divine talisman and the ancient Pangu stone guarding his soul sea, Ling Xiao didn't have to worry about anyone stirring up trouble in his soul sea. It wasn't until that ray of soul light fell and was quietly merged with Ling Zhao's body that his figure flew out in a somewhat embarrassing manner. Then, with a thought in his mind, Yin Yu immediately nodded and smiled evilly. "I'm one of the 9 generals of the Sky Demon, Yin Yu, the Gathering Yin General." Boom! In the vast blue sky, a demonic sun rose from the east, and demonic light bloomed. All the living beings that were infected by the demonic will felt cold all over, as if they had fallen into the underworld. Between heaven and earth, ghosts and gods wept, and the great Tao was obliterated. A petite and evil girl stood on the moon, and her beauty was unparalleled. At this time, Yin Yu's beautiful face didn't have a trace of eeriness and evil. Instead, it was a pure and bright smile, which was the opposite of her temperament, but added a trace of evil charm. "What? The Sky Demon General? It's actually the Sky Demon General. Evil demons should be killed." The crowd burst into an earth-shattering clamor again. Countless experts and geniuses from various sects released spiritual light from their hands, and were about to fall on Yin Yu. Only Zhang Jiuji was in a daze. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth had already been opened to an unbelievable degree. "Senior Yin Yu, you're too honest." Chapter 1194. Beat. The Chosen One's mind is trembling and doubting life. Congratulations to the host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Hearing the system's notification, Ling Xiao looked at the young man standing in front of him in a daze. He looked like a retard. Ling Xiao's expression became even more solemn and fearful. "He is indeed the Sky Demon's accomplice. Fellow Taoists, let's kill this demon together." Ling Xiao looked up to the sky and shouted. He unsheathed the ancient sword in his hand and rushed toward Yin Yu. Seeing this, the experts who were originally intimidated by the demonic aura around Yin Yu suddenly showed a touch of guilt. They followed Ling Xiao and stepped into the Buddha domain. What kind of power is this? However, at this time, the people who came from Dao Sky City to watch the show were mostly Sage Realm and Venerable Realm expert. Supreme Being experts were at the top of the Azure Sky continent. They would not interfere in ordinary worldly affairs. Not to mention that Yin Yu did not have the Buddha domain. How could these rotten fish and shrimps compete with her strength alone? Since he was the scapegoat had to be black and reliable. Yes, Zhang Jiuji was a demon. However, he was not hated by the world because of his evil deed. Therefore, in front of the various sects and forces of the Azure Sky continent, Ling Xiao gave him a great opportunity to become famous in the world. Woo! Between heaven and earth, there was an evil and terrifying fluctuation. The experts who rashly entered the Buddha domain had a touch of intense fear on their faces. At this time, they seemed to feel that the space within a radius of 10 miles had turned into a swamp. It was incomparably heavy. Moreover, the more they used their spiritual power to struggle, the greater the pressure they had to endure. On the other hand, Inyu's eyes glowed brilliantly. Her fair and slender jade-like hand swung out incessantly, shattering all the unknown extras that had some background. Demon! Stop! Ling Zhao's eyes were wide open. He bravely stood in front of a genius without caring about his own safety. However, Inyu's palm landed on his chest, and he was sent flying while vomiting blood. Don't! Demon! Don't come over! Help, I won't blindly join in the fun anymore. The thick smell of blood quietly permeated the entire desolate valley. On the other hand, Huamingxi and Ziyan appeared beside Ling Xiao in a flash. Their eyes were filled with shock and heartache when they saw the latter's pale face and the trace of blood that flowed down. Even with Ling Zhao's peerless celestial appearance, his aura was extremely weak at this moment, and his eyes were dim. He no longer had the vigor of the past. Sky Demon Palace. The demon general has appeared. Even so, there was no trace of fear on his face. Instead, he became even more determined and solemn. Mingxi, Lei Yan, the two of you should hurry back to Dao Sky City and gather the experts here. With our strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to stop this demon. Young master, what about you? Hua Ming, she clenched her teeth and looked at the sky covered by the blood mist with fear. She felt cold all over and fear that she had never felt before. At this moment, she finally understood why the world feared the devil and why everyone had the right to kill it. Such a cruel act truly made one's hair stand on end. In their eyes, life was like grass that could be slaughtered with a wave of their hand. Everything was clear now. Previously, she was still wondering how Zhang Juji could control a saint stage great demon. It turned out that he had colluded with the Sky Demon Palace's demon general. Me? I'm going to stay and stop her. Ling Zhao's tone was solemn, and there seemed to be determination on his face. Then, without waiting for Huamingxi to persuade him to stay, he had already soared into the sky again and rushed towards Inyu. The world was silent, and there was a bright divine radiance blooming around him. The originally gloomy void finally had a trace of light with the appearance of the young master. Although this trace of light was weak, insignificant, and could even be extinguished at any time, it gave everyone a kind of new hope. No regrets, no retreat. Young master, at this moment, you are the guardian of the human race. Young master. Countless sorrowful cries resounded in the sky. Many geniuses' hands flickered with spiritual light as they shouted with all their might, "A devil has appeared! Quickly come and kill the devil!" Coordinates: Dao Sky City, 200 miles east. Senior. Inyu. What are you doing? At this moment, Zhang Juji's heart was also trembling. Especially when he saw the geniuses and experts whose heads were smashed in front of him, his heart was already twitching and tense. What the hell? What the hell is going on? Was Inyu's brain kicked by a donkey? Why did she admit her identity as the Sky Demon's demon general? Inyu reached out her hand, grabbed the two saint stage experts in her hand, and squeezed hard. Two clouds of blood suddenly rose up, and then were instantly swallowed by the Buddha's domain. Hearing Zhang Juji's trembling and bewildered voice, Inyu turned her head and coldly glanced at him. The coldness in her eyes actually made this son of heaven unconsciously tremble and almost pee in his pants. Gulp. At this moment, Zhang Juji realized that he didn't seem to have a thorough understanding of the word devil. If he didn't control the Nine Suns Buddha sword back then, Inyu wouldn't have given him any chance to live. What she said before was most likely an act. Trash. Inyu snorted coldly. Then, she saw Ling Xiao rushing over with the ancient sword in his hand, and a demonic aura surged around him. But just as she was about to attack and slaughter everyone in the valley, an extremely ancient aura suddenly rippled in the forest in the distance. Not good. A supreme being expert has arrived. Yin Yu's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. Her body turned into a blood mist that enveloped Zhang Juji's body, and she quickly fled toward the horizon. Evil demon! Don't run! Ling Zhao's voice was filled with grief and indignation as he slashed his sword at the sky. But with his cultivation, how could he stop an Earth Supreme Being expert? Therefore, everyone only saw a ray of light blooming in the sky and falling into the boundless blood mist, but it didn't cause any ripples. Zhang Juji's figure had already disappeared into the distance. Puchi! Ling Xiao landed on the ground and his feet suddenly trembled. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth again. Young Master! Young Master, how are you? Ziyan and the others immediately surrounded him. When they saw the pale and dispirited youth, their eyes were filled with shock. There were still 2 days before the opening of the Daotian Academy. If he was seriously injured at this time, it would definitely affect the competition for the academy seat. However, young Master didn't hesitate at all. Perhaps in his heart the common people were really more important than fortune. Since ancient times, the last human expert with such a grand ambition was respectfully called the human emperor. The demon general has appeared. The world will be in chaos. Ling Xiao raised his head and slowly closed his eyes. There seemed to be sorrow circulating around his body, causing the valley to fall into desolation for no reason. Hateful that I am only an supreme being. Even if I want to kill the demon, I am powerless. Hateful, hateful. After saying that, Ling Xiao didn't hesitate anymore. He gently pushed away Hua Mingxi, who wanted to help him, and staggered toward the direction of Daotian City. Looking at the lonely figure, many geniuses from the various clans clenched their fists tightly. Their eyes were filled with sorrow. Among them, there was no lack of monstrous geniuses who were truly famous in the Azure continent. Their eyes were burning with the flames of battle. It was their misfortune to be born in the same era as young Master. It was because young Master's celestial appearance was unique in the 9 heavens. The great fortune of the world ultimately belonged to him. However, it was their fortune to be born in the same era as young Master. It was because young Master was a beacon of light in front of them. To them, it was a kind of spur. Lord Ling Xiao, you are the only one in the world. Chapter 1195. Rumors were spreading in Dao Sky City. Even the 4 campuses of the Star Martial College had sent elders down the mountain to investigate the massacre in the Spirit Creek Valley. In the end, Zhang Juji's name resounded across the Azure Sky continent and his identity was forcefully revealed. He was the 3rd young master of the Sirius tribe and the last disciple of Greenwood Supreme. These 2 identities alone were enough to shock many human orthodoxies. Thinking of Hao Tsongning, the young master of the Heavenly Wolf clan, had joined forces with the Heavenly Demon to kill the prodigy of the mystic realm, many sect elders immediately led their experts to the southernmost realm to demand an explanation from the Heavenly Wolf clan. After all, those who gathered in Dao Sky City were all famous prodigies in the Azure continent. Today, Yin had followed Ling Zhao's orders and killed hundreds of prodigies. This grudge was even more outrageous than Songning's. Yin methods and Zhang Juji's demonic aura were deliberately exaggerated by some people. They were extremely cruel and evil. More importantly, Hua Mingxi, the young master of the Hua family of the Heavenly Saint Business Alliance, who was also the successor of Greenwood Supremacy, had personally accused Zhang Juji of murdering her senior sister and colluding with the extraterrestrial devils to massacre the world. Of course, when the demonic aura was revealed, there was another name that was praised and praised by countless people. That was our Lord Ling Xiao. When the Sky Demon, a supreme being, was massacring the prodigies of the human race, it was the successor of the Ling people who was not afraid of danger. He single-handedly demonstrated the strength of the human race with his sword. It was said that this time, even though the young master was invincible, he was still severely injured. If the supreme being experts in Tao Sky City had not arrived, the young master would have most likely died. It was sad, lamentable, praiseworthy, and sad. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Currently, the Azure continent was in a state of panic and undercurrents were surging. It was said that Lord Wolf, who was far away in the south, died miserably after hearing the news. At the same time, in a small courtyard in the north of Tao Sky City, Ling Xiao reclined on the bamboo chair with his eyes closed, his expression calm. Beside him, Gu Chaoxiai was reading an ancient scroll with great interest, as if she was not worried about his injuries at all. Transcendent, indifferent, and transcendent. An old subordinate of the Sky Demon? Ha, the people of this world are stupid. There's one more day until the opening of the Daotian Academy. Gu Chaoxiai put down the ancient scroll. The Emperor Cannon was loose, revealing the snow-white skin on her neck. Her fine black hair casually draped over her shoulders. Even though there were no decorations, it caused the sky to lose its color and all sorts of charm to wither away. Putting aside her own luck, Gu Chaoxiai had the chaotic divine body to begin with. Every movement she made was filled with the most original life force and immortal will, ethereal and tranquil. There were thousands of beautiful women in this world, but in terms of temperament, Gu Chaoxiai was one of a kind. Yes. Ling Xiao did not open his eyes. He let out a soft grunt through his nose. Now that you're injured, you might miss the opportunity. Even though Gu Chaoxiai knew that both Zhang Juji and Hua Mingxi were probably fooled by Ling Xiao. After all, she was the one who killed Lei Yun. However, Ling Xiao's aura was indeed extremely weak. This did not seem to be fake. Opportunity? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He stood up and looked at Gu Chaoxiai. The opportunity that you're talking about, is it the seat of the Daotian Academy's lord? That's right. Ling people have many experts, but the lord of the Daotian Academy is recognized as the human saint in the sky. He's knowledgeable and has his own immortal charm. Therefore, the closer you are to the seat, the more opportunities you'll get. Gu Chaoxiai frowned slightly, especially the playful smile on Ling Xiao's face. It was really annoying. You still don't believe me. However, to Gu Chaoxiai's surprise, Ling Xiao's face did not show any signs of annoyance. His expression was inexplicable, and he looked at her meaningfully. This look made Gu Chaoxiai a little flustered, but she quickly calmed down. There are many geniuses in the sky. Many of them have been hidden for hundreds of thousands of years. They have a strong foundation. It's better not to be too careless. Moreover, there are a few treasures in the Daotian Academy that will appear during the event. If you're not injured, you'll definitely gain something. Gu Chaoxiai's words were cold. She did not look at Ling Xiao again. This guy had always been conceited in front of her, but Gu Chaoxiai knew that he had never been careless. However, it had only been half a year since Ling Xiao came to the upper domain. He had not really understood the vastness of the sky. She was just worried, huh? Why should I be worried about him? Oh, so you're worried about your husband? Ling Xiao smiled. Suddenly, he stood up and walked toward Gu Chaoxiai. Instantly, the Empress, who was still calm and composed just a second ago, suddenly trembled. She instinctively wanted to dodge, but the smile on Ling Xiao's face became more and more playful. I'm just reminding you, so that you won't underestimate the people in the world. Underestimate? You're thinking too much. I've always been careful with my words and actions. I know that the path to immortality is dangerous. I don't dare to underestimate others. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He lifted his feet and walked out of the courtyard. Are you going to look for the young master of the Hua family again? Gu Chaoxiai asked inexplicably. Although her voice was calm, the word again revealed a trace of bitterness in her heart. Are you jealous, my wife? Ling Xiao stopped and turned to look at the woman behind him. She frowned and shook her head slightly. I just feel that as a chess piece, she's very pitiful. My wife, are you worried that I will attack the young master of the Hua family? Ling Zhao's eyes were clear and his smile was gentle. So in my wife's heart, I'm someone who doesn't know how to be gentle with women? It seems that I have to take care of her more in the future, so my wife doesn't misunderstand me too much. You! Gu Chaoxiai clenched her teeth. She knew that Ling Xiao was purposely teasing her, but she was angered every time. Don't worry. Everyone knows my character. Why would I bully a weak woman? After speaking, Ling Xiao no longer hesitated. He stepped forward and disappeared from where he stood. At the same time, 1,000 miles outside of the city of Dao, he saw that this place was filled with towering mountains and precipitous ridges, ancient forests, and divine multicolored mist covered the sky. Clouds floated in Deep Creek. Zhang Jiuji's figure descended from the sky and plunged into the forest. His face was ashen. During this day, he didn't dare to rest at all. He had been fleeing the entire time. During this time, he didn't say a word to Inu. One could imagine how depressed he was at this time. The Sky Demon's general was not tolerated by the 9 heavens. He never dreamed that it would only take half a month for him to become famous in the Azure world after he was born. However, this kind of fame was no different from seeking death. Song Ning had only joined forces with the Sky Demon to kill a few prodigies who were fighting for the creation. He had become the Sky Demon's general. Not only did he kill hundreds of prodigies, but he also revealed his supreme demonic intent in front of everyone. What was even more infuriating was that all this conspiracy was personally arranged by Hua Mingxi, his second senior sister. Oh, do you think they will forgive me if I hand over the 9 Sons Buddha sword and Inu now? Don't you have anything to say to me? Zhang Jiuji took a deep breath and tried to make his tone sound calmer. Now, his reputation was ruined. Not only did he bear the name of a demon, but he also completely broke off relations with his senior sister. Besides himself, it seemed that the only person he could rely on was this ancient demon. Chapter 1196. What is there to say? Inu's figure appeared from the sword. She coldly glanced at Zhang Jiuji and spoke in an indifferent tone. Why did you admit that you are a former subordinate of the Sky Demon in front of the Ling people's young master and my senior sister? Don't you know that the immortals are the masters of this world? Aren't you forcing me to go against heaven and earth by doing this? Zhang Jiuji's mind was on the verge of collapse. Originally, he was full of ambition and came out to experience the world so that he could rely on his own efforts to reach the top of the world and enjoy the admiration of the world. The good fortune saint body, the heaven origin immortal art, and even the divine thunder of heaven and earth should have been his reliance on his path to immortality. However, he had only taken one step on this path when he encountered such a great change and was doomed to eternal damnation. He was the common enemy of heaven and earth. He was sullen, angry, and finally helpless to break free from the despair. Slap. So what if I'm the enemy of the world? Throughout history, which one of the heavenly Tao's people didn't walk out of a mountain of corpses and blood? Inu swung her hand and slapped Zhang Jiuji's face, sending him flying several feet away. She then laughed disdainfully. With your temperament, you don't even dare to attack people. How will you attack immortals in the future? Zhang Jiuji was in pain. He covered his swollen face with his hand and felt his mind go blank. He was speechless for a long time. In the end, what he was really sullen about was not that he was the enemy of the world. This path to immortality was against the heavens. The more enemies he had, the more he killed, and it would only make him grow faster. He was sullen because he was not a demon at all. However, at the mention of Zhang Jiuji's name, even the elderly, women, and children would feel disgusted. Demons are not to be humiliated. You think that the Sky Demon is dead and the immortals are the only rulers, But that's just your imagination. My master, the Sky Demon, lives as long as heaven and earth. Even if the era is destroyed, he will live forever." Inyu's expression was weathered, and a sincere smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Zhang Juji seemed to be in deep thought. His eyes trembled slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. The Sky Demon's appearance was already predicted by his master. Moreover, Inyu's actions today were actually to protect him. Without her, the young master of the Ling people alone could easily crush him. If that was the case, then those people really deserved to die. Furthermore, from Inyu's tone, it was obvious that she had something to rely on. Could it be that she knew some secrets about the Sky Demon? The Sky Demon Palace. Even though Zhang Jiuji had never appeared in the world, he knew that this power was truly unique in the 9 heavens. Not to mention, as long as he could find the inheritance of a devil palace, he would be unrivaled in the azure sky world. Since the world has misunderstood me, why should I have any more misgivings? At the end of the day, strength was the only criterion that separated the righteous from the evil. Senior, I was too one-sided just now. In the end, Zhang Juji took a deep breath and bowed to Inyu. It seemed that he had no other choice but to believe in Inyu. One day, when he truly had the power to fight against the world, the young master of the Ling people and the azure sky immortal would have to kneel in front of him and beg for forgiveness. As long as he maintained his original heart and didn't fall into the Tao of killing, he wouldn't be a true evil demon. Inexplicably, the sun and the moon seemed to shine together around Zhang Juji, and thunder patterns bloomed. A magnificent and terrifying aura quietly surged out, and his cultivation level instantly reached the 6th stage of the Venerable Realm. The creation saint body was so terrifying. As long as one's mind was clear, breaking through to the next stage was as easy as eating and drinking. Yes, the child is promising. Inyu's beautiful eyes narrowed, and they were filled with gratification. As expected of the creation saint body. Not only could it create itself, but it could also create others. 190,000 years ago, the war between the immortals and the demons ended with the death of the Sky Demon. The Sky Demon Palace's venerables, emperors, kings, generals, and billions of believers either died at the hands of the immortals or fled to the great wilderness to hide in the barren darkness. Before the war ended, she was besieged by the immortals and became the sword soul of the 9 Sons Buddha sword. Originally, Inyu thought that her path was a stranger, but she didn't expect Zhang Juji to bring her more than one surprise. The moment Gui Ying's aura appeared, she felt a heartfelt shock. What made her even more surprised was that the young man who wanted to kill Zhang Juji was actually her lord's reincarnated body. The Sky Demon was immortal. Once in the demon palace, he would be a demon for life. He would clean up the old mountains and rivers from the beginning, dominate the 9 heavens, and go against the gods to kill the immortals. Senior Inyu, what should we do next? Zhang Juji sighed softly, and he was a little confused at the moment. Right now, Hua Mingxi had a deep misunderstanding of him, and today, he had completely solidified the name of the devil. He was afraid that the remaining senior martial sisters would also avoid him. It was impossible for him to return to the demon region. After all, he had promised his father that he would become famous in the Azure and lead the Celestial Wolf clan back to the top of the world. Now that he had just been born, he had encountered such a disaster. He really didn't have the face to face his elders in the extreme south. Back then, when I was trapped in this sword, I followed that celestial to roam the world. I know many secrets of the azure sky realm. To put it bluntly, as long as you do as I say, even a pig can grow healthily. Inyu stood in the air with her hands behind her back and looked at the distant sky. At this moment, there was a lonely and ancient aura on her body. However, it was this ancient and mysterious posture that shocked Zhang Juji even more. In short, Inyu couldn't leave the 9 Sons Buddha, and she had the body of a Rakshasa. If she wanted to break free, the only thing she could rely on was him. Therefore, she would definitely do her best to help him improve his cultivation. There was no doubt about this. "Senior, please take me flying." Zhang Juji took a deep breath and bowed deeply to Inu again. Although the sky demon was not tolerated by the 9 heavens, from another perspective, it was also a taboo of the immortals and gods. A demon who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, as long as he used it well, would definitely become his greatest help. Yes, there is a very good opportunity right now. Inu smiled sinisterly. She raised her hand and stretched her body. The slender waist that was suddenly exposed was inexplicably seductive. Right now? Senior, you mean? There is a great fortune hidden in the Daotian Academy. If you can get it, perhaps you can really become famous in the Azure world. What? Daotian Academy? Senior. Zhang Juji was obviously stunned. What? Going to the Daotian Academy at this time was no different from seeking death. Do you think those self-proclaimed righteous fellows will be so happy that they will cry when they see him? Especially that young master of the Ling people. He has always set himself up as a great person who kills demons for the sake of the world. He doesn't distinguish between right and wrong at all. It seems that this Ling Xiao is just a simple-minded mortal who only cares about his reputation. The current human emperor? Don't worry. Back then, the top powers from the celestial tribe left many treasures in the Azure world. One of them is near Dao Heaven City. It can completely conceal one's aura. Even a heavenly sovereign would not be able to sense it. Moreover, I'm afraid no one would expect you to ascend Dao Mountain now. Inu said indifferently, but she was puzzled. What was his lord's goal in deliberately toying with Zhang Juji? She could kill a venerable with a wave of her hand. Why did she have to go through so much trouble? What? Senior, you are indeed very scheming. Zhang Juji's eyes narrowed. A smile appeared on his face unconsciously. Really, someone sent a pillow when I wanted to sleep. What is there to say? The fortune is with me. But, Senior, didn't you say that the immortal clan member was beaten down to the ordinary realm by someone? How did he still have time to hide the treasure? Chapter 1197. Senior, then what are we waiting for? Take me to the treasure hunt. Zhang Juji let go of his worries. With Inu's strength, killing him would be a piece of cake. The Daotian Academy was the holy land of the human race. It was reasonable that there would be great fortunes there. Although entering the academy now was indeed a perilous situation with a slim chance of survival. But his master had said that on the path to immortality, fortune and risk always coexisted. Since he wanted to clear his name and regain his reputation, he had to become stronger by hook or by crook. Let's go. Let's go get the talisman and then find a way to sneak into the Daotian Academy. Inu smiled faintly and returned to the Buddha sword. She led Zhang Juji into the distance. At the same time, inside the city of Daotian, Ling Zhao's face suddenly bloomed with a smile. His eyes seemed to be shining with thousands of rays of light. It was very magical. Now, Inu had voluntarily offered her soul seal and became his soul slave. Therefore, he only needed a thought to make her obey his orders. Originally, in Ling Zhao's plan, he didn't plan on borrowing Zhang Juji's power to get the demonic bone. After all, a destiny that he couldn't completely control would only be an obstacle to his plan. But who would have thought that the fortune he obtained in the Buddha abyss was the remnant soul of an old sky demon general? This gave Ling Xiao new inspiration. The saint body of good fortune was the most mysterious and terrifying body in the world. It was known as the battle mouse among the treasure-hunting mice. As long as Inu led him to the Daotian Academy and guided him to find the demonic bone, the fortune would come naturally. With Yang Yuan attracting attention, Zhang Juji's chances of finding the demonic bone would be higher. With 2 destiny children, even if the Daotian Academy's master was extremely powerful, he would still have a headache. Ling Xiao only needed to appear at the most crucial moment to steal the treasure and push the blame to the 2 destiny children. Then, everything would be flawless. Not to mention, at the Wanjiao banquet, Zhang Juji and Yang Yuan were very close to each other and appreciated each other's talent. As such, it seemed even more reasonable for the 2 of them to collude and cover for each other. These 2 young men were so pitiful. Now, both of them were scheming for a great hegemony in their hearts. However, they didn't know that the moment they met Ling Xiao, they were destined to be miserable. Folded shadow, find a cave and put this talisman in. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the ancient palace before him. A smile appeared on his face. Everything was ready. All that was left was to wait for tomorrow. Young master? Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the ancient palace. The smile on Ling Xiao's face grew wider as he nodded towards Hua Mingxi, who was walking towards him. Where is young Master Hua going? Young master, I was just about to look for you. Hua Mingxi's face was obviously haggard. In just 2 days, she seemed to have experienced the ups and downs of life. Logically speaking, after Zhang Juji was born, he should have become her most trustworthy helper. However, she didn't manage to gather this helper, and she almost lost her life because of it. If it wasn't for Lord Ling Xiao, who was resourceful and had a good impression of her and didn't hesitate to severely injure the demon, the one who would have died in the Spirit Creek Valley today would have been her. Looking for me? What's the matter? Ling Xiao pretended to be surprised. However, Hua Mingxi suddenly took out a Qiankuan bag and handed it to him. Young master, this is the spiritual material you want. I ordered people to get it from the clan overnight. I will continue to search for you. Hua Mingxi sighed and suddenly bowed towards Ling Xiao. Young master's kindness, Mingxi will remember it in her heart. In the future, if there is anything you need, please let me know. Oh, just in time. I also want to talk to you about your junior brother. Ling Xiao took the Qiankuan bag and walked into the palace. The light in Hua Mingxi's eyes suddenly dimmed, and she followed behind him with slight disappointment. Young Master Hua Mingxi, these 2 titles to Hua Mingxi represented Ling Xiao's attitude towards her. Now, it seemed that the young master must be very disappointed in her because of Zhang Juji. When the 2 walked into the back palace, Hua Mingxi sent people to bring tea and personally filled Ling Xiao's cup. Then, she said somewhat uneasily, Young master, how are your injuries? I specially prepared some healing panacea for you. I hope you will kindly accept it. Ling Xiao's eyes were calm, and there wasn't a trace of emotion on his face. However, the more it was like this, the more terrified Hua Mingxi felt. Where is Prime Qingmu? In the end, whether it was Zhang Juji or Hua Mingxi, they were just leaks in Ling Xiao's eyes. He could easily crush them with some tricks. What he really cared about was the prime demon behind the 2 of them. If Gu Chaoxiai's guess was correct, this prime demon was very likely related to the Realm Lord. Although finding him might not lead to finding the Realm Lord, but, as long as there was a trace of hope, Ling Xiao wouldn't miss it. Compared to the many sects and forces in the Azure world, Ling people only had one true enemy, the Realm Lord's palace. As the true ruler of the Azure world, even though the Realm Lord was missing, no one dared to fight for the power of heaven and earth. Why? Because the power of this force was too terrifying. No one was willing to bear the risk of the Realm Lord's revenge and be the first to stick their neck out. Moreover, the Realm Lord was missing, but the immortal demon Ancient Bell was still standing in the sky. Moreover, the 7 palace masters who followed the Realm Lord were still there. Young Master Hua Mingxi's pretty face froze for a moment before she understood Ling Xiao's intentions. Zhang Juji was her master's personal disciple. Now that he had just appeared, he was already colluding with the Sky Demon. This inevitably made people think, There was something wrong with Prime Ching Mu. I can swear on my life that my master is definitely not involved with the demon. If swearing is useful, then many lovers will die in this world. Ling Xiao spoke indifferently, and then he took a light sip of the tea in his cup. I want to meet your master, and only then will I know if this matter is related to him. Young master, Hua Mingxi's expression was miserable. Suddenly, she sighed softly. To be honest, even if I tell you where my master lives in seclusion, I'm afraid you won't be able to see him. Why is that? Ling Zhao's expression was strange. In fact, he already knew where Prime Ching Mu was. He was just testing if Hua Mingxi had a way to open the Heaven and Earth Imperial Palace's seal. My master knows the Heaven and Earth Tao. Now that he has sealed himself in the Heaven and Earth Imperial Palace, even a sky sovereign would find it difficult to find him, unless Hua Mingxiao wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, she shook her head. Anyway, listen to me. My master's identity is special. He definitely wouldn't collude with the demon. If you force your way into the Heaven and Earth Imperial Palace, you might attract the hatred of the entire demon race. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. For a moment, he thought of killing Hua Mingxi directly and personally checking her soul-see memories. But soon, he suppressed the killing intent in his heart. Now, it seemed that this Prime Ching Mu was most likely the demon race expert who followed the Realm Lord back then. However, Ling Xiao still didn't know why he was respected by the 10 demon races in the extreme south. Before figuring out this matter, it was best not to be too impulsive to avoid alerting the enemy. As for Hua Mingxi, she hadn't finished yet. But from her tone, Ling Xiao could tell that she should know the way to open the Heaven and Earth Imperial Palace. As long as Su Yan successfully entered the Sky Sacred Business Alliance and had a certain status, this leak could be harvested at any time. Interesting. A lackey of the Realm Lord could actually gain the respect of the 10 great demon races? This supremacy Greenwood was not simple at all. Chapter 1198. 100,000 years ago, the Realm Lord dominated the Qing Tsang continent. The 10 demon clans were driven to the south by him, struggling at death's door like livestock. If Qing Mu was really the Realm Lord's servant, how did he gain the respect of the 10 demon clans? Could it be related to him leaving the Realm Lord's palace? Ling Zhao's eyes were deep. He already had some guesses. He had no interest in the grudges from 100,000 years ago. Now that he was in the Qing Tsang continent, he naturally had to get rid of all threats and control the mortal realm. Only then would he have the foundation to fight against the immortal clan. Young master. Young master? Until Hua Mingxi called out to him, Ling Xiao smiled and nodded. Since Mingxi said so, there must be a reason. All right, let's put this matter aside for now. When I find Zhang Juji, everything will come to light. Thank you for your trust, young master. Hua Mingxi smiled shyly, but when she saw Ling Zhao's calm face, her expression turned serious, and she put away these thoughts. Oh right, young master, tomorrow is the opening day of the Daotian Academy. According to the past rules, those who enter the academy have to go through a trial to determine the ranking and compete for a seat to lecture. Yes. Ling Xiao continued to drink tea, as if he didn't care about this so-called trial. Young master, it's all Mingxi's fault for causing you to be heavily injured. Otherwise, young master would definitely be able to leave your name on the ancient Tao tablet in this trial and be as famous as the ancient sages of the human clan. Hua Mingxi sighed, but Ling Xiao shook his head. Killing demons is the mission of the human clan. If we are afraid of being injured, won't we encourage their arrogance? The reason why the human clan has become like this is because they are too scheming. They only know how to scheme against their own kind, but they are afraid of demons and immortals. If this continues, I'm afraid that in less than 10,000 years, there will be no place for the human clan in the 9 heavens. Young master, I know that my strength alone is limited. However, if you don't accumulate small streams, you can't form a sea. If you don't accumulate small steps, you can't reach 1,000 miles. I believe that one day, the human clan will regain its vigor. Ling Xiao heaved a long sigh, his brows sorrowful. Hua Mingxi, on the other hand, covered her mouth tightly. Her eyes were trembling and all the words she wanted to say were choked with sobs. The human emperor was the only one in the 9 heavens. Who would have thought that in the azure sky world, the one who truly possessed the backbone of the human race was actually such a wealthy and carefree young master of the ancient race? With the foundation of the Ling people, the Lord Ling Xiao could lie down on his bed and embrace women on his left and right. He could also become a supreme being and have an endless lifespan. Looking at the green Tsang continent, just the word Ling was a supreme honor that no one could touch. But, however, young master was uneasy about the current situation. He took it upon himself to revitalize the human race. As a predecessor, he attempted to use this body of blood and bones to forge a new backbone for the human race. With righteousness in his heart, what is there to fear from the heavens? At this moment, Hua Mingxi's body and mind were trembling, and her eyes were filled with tears. Any prejudice against the young master was like a kind of blasphemy that could not be forgiven. Let's not talk about this for now. After all, Zhang Jiuji is your junior brother. Now that he exposed his demon body in the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance, many people saw him that day. Ling Zhao's tone was calm as he looked at Hua Mingxi meaningfully. Hearing this, the young master of the Hua family's face darkened and she sighed. If Zhang Jiuji turned into a demon and escaped that day, Hua Mingxi would at most bear the reputation of being unfaithful. But yesterday, he colluded with the former subordinates of the Sky Demon and massacred the geniuses of the Azure Sky world. This was a true sin that could not be forgiven. Now, there were already undercurrents in the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance. The Su family had declined, so they might not dare to do anything to the Hua family. However, the Lu family would definitely take this opportunity to suppress the Hua family's arrogance and find a chance to unify the business alliance. Originally, Hua Mingxi had hoped to use this banquet to raise her prestige and fight for the position of the current young master of the business alliance. From the looks of it now, it was more or less a case of suffering a double loss. Young master, it's fine if you don't mention it. Now that you mention it, I feel depressed. Hua Mingxi took a deep breath and her eyes shone. She seemed to have made up her mind. Young master, actually, there are some things that I don't know if I should say. Just say it. Ling Xiao frowned. He had already guessed what Hua Mingxi was going to say. Now that she was involved with the demon, it would take a long time for her to completely get rid of her bad name. Plus, the 3 clans were the most stable structure of power. But the Su family's sudden decline broke the balance between the 3 clans. If Ling Xiao was the leader of the Lu family, he would definitely take this opportunity to take control of the business alliance. This was the most basic desire of humans. When power was at their fingertips, no one would reject it. Therefore, Hua Mingxi's situation was far more dangerous than it seemed on the surface. Jin Han had said before that the young master of the Su family died in an accident. No matter who did this, it would give Hua Mingxi a lot of pressure. Now, the only person she could count on was Ling Xiao. A person who was stronger than the Lu family, so strong that they didn't dare to act recklessly. Young master, the business alliance is far more complicated than what people see. I wonder if you have heard about the young master of the Su family? Hua Mingxi raised her head and looked at Ling Xiao seriously. I have heard about it. Back then, the young master of the Su family, Su Shan, was extremely talented and skilled in business. He should have been the best candidate for the position of the young master. But when he was traveling in the Azure continent, he was kidnapped. He used his life as a bet and asked for billions of spiritual stones, dozens of holy weapons, hundreds of thousands of fifth-rank spiritual dawn, and countless treasures from the business alliance. Hua Mingxi nodded. This incident shocked the entire Azure continent. It was normal for young master to have heard about it. And then? Then, the Su family used all their resources to try and save Su Shan. But who would have thought that those people would be so immoral? After they got the treasures, they killed Su Shan. I see. Ling Zhao's eyes turned cold. He suddenly understood. No wonder the Su family suddenly declined. Billions of spiritual stones, dozens of holy weapons, and hundreds of thousands of spiritual dawn. Even an ancient family with 100,000 years of history would have been completely emptied by such wealth. Not only did the Su family lose their inheritance, but they also lost their resources. It was reasonable for them to decline. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao was not thinking about whether the Lu family had anything to do with this matter. Instead, he was thinking about whose hands did the wealth fall into. According to Ling Zhao's guess, even if those people really listened to the Lu family, they wouldn't dare to covet the wealth. After all, once they were recognized, the Lu family would be doomed eternally. Therefore, these treasures might still be in the hands of those people. Ling Xiao only needed to follow the clues and find out who they were. Not only would he be able to get these treasures for free, more importantly, haha, Lu family, are you ready? After this incident, the Su family was unable to recover from the setback. The head of the Su family even fell ill due to anger and had an inner demon. However, the Lu family suddenly welcomed a direct descendant from the mortal world. He was extremely talented and had high attainments in both martial arts and business. The Lu family completely prospered. Hua Mingxi sneered, "Young master, do you think this is too much of a coincidence?" You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.